Last blow, Whitebeard, die. Akainu grimly blasted out the strongest punch ever, and with unmatched momentum, it hit Whitebeard in the head. Boom. Whitebeard's head seemed to be blown up, making a terrifying explosion. After the sound ended, I saw what Whitebeard looked like at this time. Whitebeard stood motionless, still holding his large naginata in his right hand, but there was no movement in his whole body. Everyone around saw that Whitebeard's head had been blown up, and the skull and flesh were clearly visible. Not only that, he was covered with bloodline Madara all over his body, and he couldn't see a clean place. Akainu stood in front of Whitebeard, panting violently, and a sharp scar appeared on his chest. Even though he exploded Whitebeard strongly, he himself was injured by Whitebeard's full counterattack. Whitebeard, you are a respectable opponent, but today, you end here. A faint sigh came from Akainu's mouth. Although Whitebeard still had a breath, he was already very weak. If he hadn't been forcibly supported, he would have died. Half of Whitebeard's head was blown up. It was really only the last breath left. His only left eye, the corner of his eye drooping, looked at Akainu in front of him. Looks like I will die under your hands, but I believe that one day, you will not end well. Whitebeard's voice was very small, but Akainu heard it all. He slowly said, my end may not be good, but now I'm still alive and working towards my goal, that's enough. A light flashed in Whitebeard's eyes and said, we are the same. After saying this, he looked at the pirates who were running towards the coast and being chased by Marine. Numerous colors appeared in his eyes for a moment, but in the end they all disappeared one by one, and he became desolate. New World Pirate, the head of the 4 emperors, Whitebeard, Edward Newgate, died in battle. What is amazing is that although Whitebeard is dead, his stump did not fall. The only left hand holding a large naginata, supporting his body, stands proudly there. Unyielding despite death. Whitebeard, the pirate Whitebeard is dead. Whitebeard was killed by Sakazuki Admiral. The pirate 4 emperors Whitebeard is dead, ha ha ha, we won this battle. Whitebeard is dead, but the body didn't fall down, this. In the area of Marine around Akainu and Whitebeard, they all screamed with excitement. They shouted with excitement. This Whitebeard, who brought them endless fear, finally died in front of them, died. Akainu's hands. At the same time, they were also shocked that Whitebeard was already dead, and the remains did not fall. At the moment Whitebeard died in battle, the entire naval headquarters fell into a sudden silence, especially the pirates. They all looked at Whitebeard's still upright body, crying and shouting, Daddy. Father. Marco, the captain of the Whitebeard pirate regiment, stopped abruptly and looked back at the tall figure of Whitebeard. Captain Marco, Daddy him. Marco also burst into tears, and a blue flame burst out all over his body, but at this moment, Beasta grabbed him and said to him, Marco, the last wish of the father is that we can live well. If you go back, you will be betraying your father's wishes. Marco trembled all over, and said a little bit, I know, Dad wants us all alive, we must leave here. But the old man's body is still there, don't we leave it alone? A pirate who was very loyal and admired to Whitebeard suddenly asked Marco and other living captains with excitement. Marco wiped away his tears, recovered his calm, and said, we are no longer Marine's opponents. Going back will only increase casualties. We remember this enmity. We must make Akainu pay a painful price in the future. In this war, Whitebeard was seriously injured in many, but most of the injuries came from Akainu, not to mention that Akainu was killed in the end. Several fatal injuries also came from Akainu. In the anime, Whitebeard suffered hundreds of wounds all over his body, but because Whitebeard mainly fights with Akainu solo, the wounds are much less, but they look more serious. Akainu's magma is more powerful than ordinary artillery fire. Much. Go. Under the leadership of Marco, the pirates retreated quickly. Now Whitebeard is dying. Although they are extremely sad, it is equivalent to no worries. They just need to run away without any other thoughts. Sengoku, Whitebeard is dead, there is no need to continue, right? Although Garp has been confronting Sengoku, how close the two of them are. Even in this case, they didn't act immediately, but Luffy also had no chance to escape. Sengoku's complexion was complex, and Whitebeard's death shocked his heart. He was responsible for hunting down Whitebeard. The two fought against each other countless times. He wanted Whitebeard to die, but when Whitebeard really died, he was still full of emotion. But with emotion, it is absolutely impossible to let these pirates go. Now they have the advantage. If they don't wipe out all the pirates, how can they be worthy of such a good opportunity? This is Marine and New World Pirate 4 Emperors. The confrontation, the first great victory in history. Even if Garp spoke up, it couldn't be stopped. Garp, this is Marine's biggest victory in history. You must not let any pirates go. As for your grandson, Luffy, the Straw Hat, I promise you will not kill him and put him in jail. The day it was released. Garp sneered. Sengoku, do you believe this? Sengoku is speechless. World government is not a kind government. It treats pirates even more harshly. As long as they are caught, they have never heard of being released again by Enran. Sengoku, I can't manage that much today. I will let Luffy leave safely anyway. No matter what you do afterwards, I have no complaints. Garp pleaded with Sengoku again. Garp Vice Admiral, you should be very clear that this is absolutely impossible, and one of the pirates here must never be let go. Before Sengoku answered, Akainu's cold snort rang, and then others came to the front of Sengoku, staring coldly at Garp and the straw hat Luffy behind him. Sakazuki. Garp looked anxious. If it were Sengoku, he still had a chance, but Akainu came. With Akainu's character, he would not care about their past friendships at all, and would definitely pursue him and kill Luffy. You killed Ace, you killed Whitebeard, you killed so many people. Now the naval headquarters base is full of blood and corpses, isn't that enough? Akainu said coldly. Garp Vice Admiral, you are also naval headquarters Vice Admiral anyway. How could you ask such a stupid question? Blood flowed into rivers. There are mountains of corpses. If you don't kill them all, it will only be 100 times worse. It is not the pirates who die at that time, but the tens of thousands of ordinary people all over the world. Garp said solemnly, I can't control what you want, but Luffy is my grandson, don't even think about it. As soon as Akainu spoke, Sengoku interrupted. Sakazuki, I said, leave it to me here, you were responsible for hunting down the people of the Whitebeard pirates. Akainu was dissatisfied and said, the Whitebeard pirates is no longer a concern. The Straw Hat Boy has a greater potential. It is more meaningful to get rid of him than to get rid of the pirates. The most threatening Whitebeard of the Whitebeard pirates has been killed, and Ace has been killed by him. The remaining Marco and others, although they are still strong, are not enough to make Akainu pay attention to it. Compared with Luffy, Luffy's threat is even greater. Great, he knew, if Luffy did not die, what a frenzy would be set off in the future. I know what to do, don't forget, first I'm Martial Marine now. Speaking of this, Sengoku has completely denied Akainu's face. It is considered a complete tear. This has changed the faces of many Marine officials around, although the war has allowed them to see the relationship between Sengoku and Akainu. The conflict intensified, but it was the first time that Sengoku scolded Akainu so openly. Akainu's face suddenly became very ugly, but because he had a wound on his face, he couldn't see it, but his eyes were full of anger. You should be very clear about the consequences of the dragon's defection at the time. The boy with a straw hat today is no less threatening than the dragon at the beginning. Letting the tiger return to the mountain will bring endless troubles, Marshal Sengoku. What he believes is that people respect me afoot, and I respect others. In order to suppress him, Sengoku demoted him to North Blue. He hasn't said anything about this, but now Sengoku treats him like this again. Since Sengoku has torn his face, what else is he afraid of? Sengoku did this, after the war ended. His position as marshal must not be guaranteed. Sengoku stared at Akainu coldly, and said word by word, I'll say it again for the last time, here I will be responsible. A strange atmosphere arose between Akainu and Sengoku, and everyone could see the confrontation between them. Marshal Sengoku, Sakazuki Admiral. The two most powerful men in Marine confronted each other, and the rest of Marine generals did not dare to speak, but waited nervously. After a full minute, Akainu finally let out a cold snort, without a word, and left immediately, chasing in the direction where the Whitebeard pirates fled. Sengoku is right. No matter how unhappy he is with Sengoku, Sengoku is now his boss, Marshal Marine, the supreme commander of this war. He must obey the order, even if the order seems very unreasonable to him. Ace, Luffy. But Akainu hadn't walked 2 steps, and suddenly an eager shout came from the shore, calling out the names of Ace and Luffy. Basically everyone on the battlefield heard this voice. Akainu glanced away, and saw a ship of unknown origin suddenly appeared on the coast, neither a warship nor a ship with a pirate flag. After that ship drew ashore, it immediately rushed out of a figure. Washed ashore at a fast speed. A group of people rushed out of that ship and they actually started fighting with Marine. The pirates of the Whitebeard pirate group thought they were Marines at first, but when they saw these people fighting with Marine, they immediately knew that they were not enemies. The pirates who had escaped were all shocked, not knowing whether to escape or to help these people who suddenly appeared. Who are they? The most angry is Sengoku. In this war, Marine has won a full victory, just to reap the final fruit. As a result, these people of unknown origin suddenly appeared, and it is very likely that they will disrupt their arrangement. Soon, a naval headquarters rear admiral ran to Sengoku and said, Marshal Sengoku is the Revolutionary Army, and the people on that ship are the Revolutionary Army. What? Revolutionary Army? Sengoku's face changed drastically, and he asked in amazement, Dragon, did the dragon also appear? This was completely unexpected, because this war was a war between Marine and the pirates, and Marine was not in charge of the Revolutionary Army, so he never thought that the Revolutionary Army would appear at this time, but he instantly after reacting, he suddenly turned to look at Luffy in the straw hat. The Straw Hat Boy. Garp's face also changed drastically, but Luffy looked sad. He hadn't recovered from Ace's death, nor had he realized what the emergence of the Revolutionary Army meant. Akainu did not go far, so he heard clearly. Like Sengoku, the appearance of the Revolutionary Army also made him difficult to understand. Based on his understanding of dragons, dragons should not be involved in the battle on the top at this time. Even the appearance of Luffy won't make him change his mind, because Naval Headquarters still has Garp's existence, and it is impossible for Luffy to be killed. But now the Revolutionary Army has appeared, appearing at the risk of exposure, and his eyes are on the group of people on the coast. The Marine Rear Admiral who reported earlier immediately replied, Marshal Sengoku, it is the Revolutionary Army, but not the leader of the Revolutionary Army, but it is not the leader of the Revolutionary Army. The leader is the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, the Chief of Staff of the Revolutionary Army, Sabo. What? That's Sabo. Sengoku was relieved to hear that it was not the dragon coming in person, but Sabo's name still made him frown. He didn't know much about the situation of the Revolutionary Army. After all, this belongs to CP0 and is mainly responsible, but for Sabo he still has what I have heard is that this is a very representative figure in the Revolutionary Army. I see. After hearing the name Sabo, Akainu was relieved, because he knew the relationship between Sabo and Luffy and Ace. The dragon did not appear. Sabo appeared and shouted just now. There is no doubt that Sabo is here for Ace and Luffy. The only strange thing about him is that Sabo in the anime has lost his memory and only recovered his memory 2 years later. When he thinks of Ace and Luffy, how can he think of it now? He didn't know. In fact, this incident was also a coincidence. Marine and New World 4 emperors went to war. Although such an important matter had little to do with the Revolutionary Army, they were also very concerned, especially before the war began. Mentioned this matter, and also took out the newspaper. And it was just such a coincidence that Sabo saw this newspaper and the result can be imagined. Sabo, it's Sabo, Grandpa, it's Sabo. At this time, Luffy finally reacted. He yelled at Garp excitedly, tears streaming down, and then he yelled in the direction of Sabo and the others, Sabo, I am here. Garp's face changed, and then he made a decision, grabbed Luffy, threw him away, and said loudly, Luffy, run away from here. Garp was so powerful that Luffy was thrown into the air like a cannonball. Akainu saw this scene without any hesitation, and immediately chased Luffy. Sakazuki. Garp flickered, blocking Akainu's front, and shouted, Do you really take my words as the wind? Akainu furiously said, Garp Vice Admiral, don't push me. You are forcing me, Sakazuki, I'm enduring the urge to kill you, don't force me. Garp roared. Garp blocked one after another, which made Akainu already unbearable. If Sengoku hadn't forcibly ordered him, he would have been tempted to do it. Now Garp says he can't stand it anymore, do you think he can stand it? You are forcing me. Akainu screamed, ignoring any influence, the lava fist blasted out, and Garp also yelled and raised his fist. Boom. The two horrible fists collided and made an astonishing roar. The people around several tens of meters were all forced to retreat by the force, looking at Akainu and Garp in amazement. Sakazuki Admiral and Garp Vice Admiral are fighting, what can I do? Seeing Akainu and Garp fighting, the surrounding Marines were full of horror. They didn't dare to persuade them. If they were to stop it, they would not be able to do it with their abilities, so they could only watch dumbly. Even Sengoku did not expect that Akainu and Garp would do it like this. Both of them are extremely strong. Even if Akainu was injured and affected, they were not defeated by Garp in the battle. They were dozens of them. Within seconds, dozens of moves were played, and Garp's pure physical skill attack did not even look at Akainu's magma. Stop both of you. Sengoku rushed into the middle of Akainu and Garp, and the two who had been angry stopped immediately. Are you two crazy? Where is this place? Is it the place where you two fight? Huh? Sengoku is indeed extremely angry. This is the war between Marine and the pirates. As a result, the people inside Marine fought, and they are still the two strongest people in Marine. This is not as simple as making people look at jokes, but it will shake Marine. The Foundation, no matter from which aspect, was the fault of his Marine Marshal. Akainu was silent, it wasn't his fault in the first place, and Garp lowered his head, but he didn't mean to admit his mistake. After a big curse, Sengoku's anger did not diminish in the slightest. He had nothing to do with Akainu, because in terms of military discipline, Akainu was not wrong. He just wanted to get angry and had no reason, so he could only vent his anger on Garp. Come on. Take Garp Vice Admiral to the rear and wait until the war is over before handling it. Suddenly several marine officers came over, but they just stood beside Garp and didn't dare to start. What are you doing in a daze? Take him away. Sengoku was even more furious when he saw that they didn't dare to do anything. Several marine officers glanced at each other, and then cautiously said to Garp, "Garp Vice Admiral, look." Before Garp spoke, Sengoku shouted angrily. "Ask him what? Don't you understand my order? And you, Garp, after the war is over, I will not spare you easily." After that, Garp was escorted away by the marine officers. This time Garp was not resisting, because Luffy had been released by him. With Sabo and other revolutionary soldiers, it must be safe. Even if it's not safe, he can't continue to shoot. After all, he can stop Akainu, but it is impossible to stop everyone. If Sengoku is angered and Marine's attention is focused on Luffy, then Luffy must be dead. Akainu saw Sengoku's treatment of Garp. Although he was upset, he couldn't help but snorted, turned and rushed towards the shore. Luffy. Sabo had just killed a marine soldier and suddenly saw someone smashing towards him. He was taken aback for a moment, but then he recognized Luffy and quickly caught Luffy. Sabo. Luffy and Sabo hugged each other hard. The two were extremely excited. After 10 years, they finally met again. At the beginning, Sabo left at a young age in order to avoid, but Sabo was very young at the time. When I left, I encountered danger and almost died. In the end, he was rescued by the dragon by coincidence, and then he followed the dragon. Although the two of them haven't seen each other for many years, they have been together since childhood, so they recognized each other at a glance. Luffy hugged Sabo, tears flowed down without money, and shouted in pain, "Sabo, Ace, Ace him." Sabo is here to save Ace, but he still doesn't know that Ace is dead, but seeing Luffy's appearance, there is an unknown premonition in his heart, which makes him feel painful. Luffy, Luffy, what happened to Ace? Luffy cried, "Ace, Ace is dead, Ace is dead." What? Ace is dead? Who is it? Who did it? Sabo shook his whole body and shouted excitedly. "I killed it. Do you want to avenge him?" Before Luffy could answer, a cold voice rang. It's him, it's he who killed Ace, and Ace was killed by him." Luffy looked at Akainu with hatred. If he hadn't known that he was not Akainu's opponent, he would have rushed forward now. Marine Admiral, Akainu. A well-known big figure like Akainu, as the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, Sabo naturally recognized it at a glance. Luffy. Did he really kill Ace? Luffy pointed to the place where Ace died and said, "Ace's body is there. He died so miserably, Sabo, we must avenge Ace." Sabo is not Luffy. Although he is heartbroken by Ace's death, he is more sensible than Luffy. He just arrived, but he can see the current situation at a glance. The pirates only have to escape. It is absolutely impossible to be Marine's opponent, and now Marine is even more eye-catching. If you stay, it will only be more dangerous. It's just that he didn't speak, and the revolutionary cadres who came with him eagerly shouted, "Sabo, if you don't leave, you will be surrounded by Marine. We are here to save people, not to fight Marine." There were not many people from the Revolutionary Army, and they didn't want to fight to death with Marine, so seeing that Sabo and Luffy had joined and Ace had died, they had no intention to continue, and they urged Sabo to retreat quickly. Sabo said decisively to Luffy, "Luffy, it's not time to avenge Ace. You are seriously injured. Let's leave here first, and we will talk about the revenge later." Luffy hesitated for a moment. Although he desperately shouted for revenge, he was not an idiot, and he could see that the current situation was very bad. If he stayed forcibly to get revenge, he would most likely be wiped out. "Well, Sabo, we will leave now. None of you can leave." Akainu snorted. Although the successive battles cost him a lot, it is still far from his limit. Sabo is the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, but his strength is not enough to make him jealous. Originally, he was just planning to keep Luffy. It would be better for even Sabo to stay with him now. With that, he just used his power to rush towards Sabo and Luffy. Sabo pushed Luffy away, and then let out a low cry. Dragonclaw Fist. The 5 fingers of Sabo's right hand showed a strange shape, claw-shaped, but the index finger and middle finger were close together. The ring finger and little finger were close together, plus the thumb. It looked like a dragon's claw. Sabo's dragon claws collided with Akainu's fists, and instead of being blown up, they withstood the attack. Humph. There was a sharp flash in Akainu's eyes, and his right fist quickly turned into magma. With a second force, Sabo was knocked back, and then he jumped up and blasted towards Sabo again. Sabo didn't dare to be careless, and immediately used armament hockey to cover his dragon claws and rammed Akainu's lava fist. Boom. The ground collapsed. Sabo retreated embarrassedly, grabbed Luffy, and shouted, "Retreat." After only 2 matches, Sabo knew that he would never be Akainu's opponent, so he didn't dare to stay at all. Withdraw. The people of the Revolutionary Army came quickly, and they withdrew quickly. They didn't want to fight Marine at all. This scene made the pirates of the Marine and Whitebeard pirates very shocked. Before this group of people came fiercely, they thought that there would be another big battle, but they did not expect that in just a few minutes, the two sides had begun to retreat before the fight started. Isn't this funny? In fact, it's not funny. Sabo brought people to save Ace and Luffy. Now Ace is dead and Luffy has joined him. It is too dangerous to stay. Of course he is not willing to take risks. As for the others, let alone, they never thought about participating in this war, especially now that the war is over and they are even less willing to get involved. The Whitebeard pirates has nothing to do with them, and they don't need to help. Those pirates. Whether it is the pirates or the Revolutionary Army, don't let any of them escape. Akainu watched Sabo and the others fled to the coast, and immediately gave loud orders to the surrounding Marine soldiers before catching up. Today is definitely the worst day in history for the Whitebeard pirates. So far, more than half of the pirates have died tragically by Marine's knife, and the remaining pirates have desperately escaped from the bay to the coast. There is obviously only a little distance, but for the pirates, it is close to the horizon. Marine's people are all red eyes. As long as the pirate is chased, it is a hack, which does not give the pirate a chance to survive. This also leads to the fact that the pirate rarely has the wounded to survive, but it is Marine's side. There are many wounded soldiers. Sabo ran away with Luffy quickly, but suddenly a volcanic bomb shot from behind, spreading over the sky. Not good. Facing the overwhelming magma volcanic bomb, Sabo is difficult to resist, especially Luffy is now seriously injured and the situation is even more critical. Sabo immediately made the most correct choice. At this time, he kept running away, leaving behind to Akainu. It would only be worse, so he immediately said to the Revolutionary Army cadres around him, "Take my brother to the ship first, and I will stop Akainu." Volcano bombs fell one after another, and many of the surrounding Revolutionary Army were hit by volcano bombs, shouting miserably, but at this time no one dared to turn around to save people. They could only escape, and the one who heard Sabo's order, the cadres of the Revolutionary Army, did not hesitate to grab Luffy and ran away. Sabo faced the attacking volcano bombs back. Armament Haki resorted to a few attacking volcano bombs. Even with Armament Haki, he was very uncomfortable by the shocking force and heat of the volcano bomb. Great eruption. Although Sabo is the second in command of the Revolutionary Army, Akainu is not as good as Luffy at all, so he now wants to destroy Sabo as quickly as possible before ending Luffy. Sabo used all his strength to resist the huge lava fist. The scorching heat caused his pores to explode. In an instant, sweat flowed out and evaporated, and his people were very small compared to the huge lava fist. The fist blasted tens of meters away. Puff. After finally stopping his body, Sabo couldn't help but spit out blood. His pupils were full of shock. How can Akainu be so strong? Thinking of the dragon's instructions to him before leaving, he must be careful about Marine Admiral, especially Akainu. He still didn't care much. After all, he was also young and ambitious, and he became the dragon's deputy at a young age. It is inevitable to be arrogant. Yes, even if Long said that Akainu was terrifying, he might not even be able to deal with it, and he was not nervous, but felt that he would not be any worse than Akainu. But at this moment, he really realized what the dragon said. There was no exaggeration at all. Akainu was far more terrifying than he thought. Under the head-on fight, he used his full strength, and he was still hit by Akainu's punch. When he was shocked, he suddenly heard Luffy's screams, and he looked back nervously, and saw that the revolutionary cadre who had fled with Luffy was hit by a volcanic bomb falling from the sky, and his whole person was submerged. It was also hit by a huge force, hit by a volcano in the air, and fell to the ground screaming. Luffy. You still have time to care about others, so take care of yourself first. Sabo shook his whole body, but he didn't have time to dodge it. He saw a big casserole fist hit his face. He was directly smashed into the air by the huge force, only feeling that his head was blown off, and his ears were full of roar. Like a sound. Boom. Sabo rolled on the ground for tens of meters before stopping. He fell on the ground and bleeds through 7 holes. He is very miserable, but he is not dead, because at the last moment, he still used armament Haki to barely resist a part of the impact. Puff. Blood was constantly spouting from Sabo's mouth, and he looked at Akainu who was slowly walking in horror on his face. Fur. Above the city wall, Doflamingo let out a deep laugh as he watched the fighting in the bay and on the coast. His main gaze was focused on where Akainu was. Our Marine Admiral Akainu is really a powerful man. He fights Whitebeard, kills Ace, slays the Blackbeard pirates, and destroys Whitebeard. The greatest contribution of this war should be him. No one else has him in total. One person's success is great, especially in the end he even fought with Sengoku and Garp. It's really interesting, Fur. Hey, what do you think, Shichibukai who can only sneak attack? After laughing, he suddenly turned his gaze to Hayward, who was not far away. Shichibukai before him. Now only he and Hayward are standing here. The rest have left, Hawkeye and Biss. The Tower and Shiryu of Rain did not come back after they fought each other. Moria was busy collecting corpses, and the bear didn't know where he went. Doflamingo, do you want to try my abilities? Hayward stared at Doflamingo coldly. Doflamingo said disdainfully, then you can give it a try. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Hayward's mouth and slowly said, I know that your base camp is in Dressrosa. Do you think with my ability, if you want to do something, can you prevent it? Are you threatening me? The smile on Doflamingo's face disappeared instantly, and he stared at Hayward with a cold look, because Hayward's words did touch his inverse scales. Just imagine, with Hayward's ability, he could not be afraid, but if you really want to do something to his men, the consequences are absolutely unimaginable. Hayward shrugged and said, whatever you think. After that, he no longer looked at Doflamingo, but frowned and looked at the battlefield ahead, hesitating whether to take action, especially when he saw that Akainu failed to chase Luffy several times. He wanted to take action. Thinking, that's too obvious. He is now Shichibukai. Although he is blocked by the world government, he is still a pirate in the final analysis. He cannot be too close to Marine, otherwise he will inevitably be suspected. Come to rescue the brothers. This friendship is admirable, but the pirates are unforgivable. If you want to save the pirates, you have to pay the price of blood. Akainu stood in front of Sabo, ready to kill the killer, but suddenly a burly body stood in front of him. Bear. Akainu looked cold and asked, you want to save him? One of the Shichibukai bears said blankly, he can't die. Akainu said, what if I have to kill him? You can't kill it, Shang said. Akainu's face is cold, and he knows the bear's ability very well. If the bear really wants to save Sabo, he may not be able to kill it, but he is still very dissatisfied when the bear speaks so blatantly. Then I have to try it. A blade of light flashed past, but the bear who had prepared had already grabbed Sabo and disappeared instantly. Teleport. Slash defeated, Akainu's eyes were even more cold. If there are those people in the world of pirates that he doesn't want to fight against, Bartholomew Kuma is definitely one. It's not because the bear is too strong, but because the bear's devil fruit ability is too strong. A rascal, who can both teleport and shoot people flying far away. How to fight this? As long as the bear doesn't want to fight with you, it can't fight at all. Would you rather expose your identity to save Sabo? Akainu calmed down the anger in his heart. Now that the bear has decided, he really can't stop him. Who can stop the bear that Ishin wants to escape? But Shang would rather expose his identity and save Sabo, which shows that Sabo is very important to the Revolutionary Army. And Shang decided to do this. I'm afraid it was well thought out. Akainu had known his identity a long time ago. It was because Sengoku and Akainu were not in harmony before, so he was able to guarantee his safety. But what happened after the war, no one said. I don't know, but when his identity is exposed and not exposed, there will be no difference. It's better to save Sabo and Luffy, who are very important to the Revolutionary Army. That's right. Just now when the bear rescued Sabo, he also rescued Luffy, who was injured and unconscious. Looking ahead, the pirates of the Whitebeard pirate group, except those who were trapped by Marine and unable to escape, the rest of the pirates have already fled to the coast, but they were desperate after they escaped to the coast. The Discovery, the entire sea was sealed by ice. Even if they snatched the warship, they could not leave smoothly. The pirates attacked the ice frantically, but Aokiji's frozen fruit ability is really powerful. With such a heavy ice surface, the bottoms of general ships and pirate ships are completely frozen, and it is not something ordinary pirates can break. Even those captains want to break the ice, it will take a while. But the question is, do they have time now? No, not at all. Marine's siege of them has reached a crazy level. They have exhausted their energy to deal with Marine, and there is still room to split the ice. Originally, Akainu was planning to kill Luffy the Straw Hat, but now Luffy has been rescued by the bear, so he can only turn his eyes to the Whitebeard pirates. He doesn't care about the ordinary pirates. It is the Whitebeard Sea that he wants to execute himself. The only remaining captain of the thieves. At this time, the Whitebeard pirates group suffered heavy losses. In addition to the dead Captain Whitebeard, there are only 8 captains left, plus Ace, 16 captains. The battle is not over, it is half dead. The remaining 8 captains, the 3rd Division Captain Joz has been severely injured by Akainu. He has not woken up yet and is being escorted by a group of pirates to escape. The remaining captains are mostly injured, but it is precisely because of their leadership that the pirates can escape to the coast even in such a critical situation. Captain Marco, the sea is already frozen, what should we do? Marco's eyes flashed with eagerness. He wanted to take everyone back to the sea in New World, but now it seems that hope is getting dimmer. He hasn't spoken yet, and the rest of the pirates have already screamed. Stand up. Since we can't escape, Then we will fight with Marine to avenge Daddy and Ace. Yes, the old man is dead, and I don't want to live, so first fight with Marine, kill one without losing, kill two and still make money. Let Marine see, we are not easy to bully either. The Whitebeard pirates have no bullies. Yeah, everyone fights with them. The pirates who fled from the desert, their bloodliness rose again, and turned around, ready to go with Marine. Sakazuki Admiral. The Marine soldiers quickly dispersed, allowing Akainu to go to the forefront, facing the pirates headed by Marco. Akainu. Seeing Akainu, all the pirates were extremely angry, but no one dared to scream forward. They were all restrained by Akainu's powerful strength. They only dared to express their anger, but did not dare to vent to Akainu. By now, you should also know what you will end up with, so I will kill you personally. Akainu motioned the others to step back. He was facing Marco and others alone, and magma began to appear all over his body. Against so many people alone, it was not because he was arrogant, but because Marco and others were in a very poor state. Dozens of hundreds of people, except for a few who can pose a threat to him, the rest are not at all concerned. When Marco and the others saw that they could not escape, they were not afraid. Marco sternly shouted to Akainu. Akainu, today we are going to die, we will hold you back. Yes, even if we die, we will kill Akainu to avenge my father. The pirates were angry, and Akainu just sneered at this, and then burst out with all his strength. The overwhelming magma pressed towards the pirates, and the pirates headed by Marco also used their own. Do your best to compete with Akainu's magma. One is invincible by personal force, and the other is large in number. Both sides are determined to kill the other, so they all burst out of the strongest force, but when these two forces collide, no one can do anything. Akainu's savage complexion, crazy output, and constant eruption of magma can never break the defenses of Marco and others. The same is true for Marco and others. They all wanted to kill Akainu, but they couldn't do it. Even if they tried their best, they still could only reach a barely balance. It would cost a lot to kill Akainu. Effort. Just as Akainu and Marco and others were fighting, a desert sword suddenly emerged from the ground and attacked Akainu directly. It was a critical moment at this time. If the desert sword stabbed Akainu, it would definitely give Marco and others the upper hand, but Akainu's face remained unchanged, leaving the desert sword to attack without any precaution. The desert sword came fiercely, but it didn't hurt Akainu because it was blocked by someone who was Akainu's disciple Asana. In this war, although Lasana did not show much limelight, she also killed many pirates. Among them, a captain of the Whitebeard pirate group died in her hands and killed 2 pirates. Captain, even if it is placed in the entire marine, it is considered to be a big credit. Crocodile wanted to attack Akainu. Lasana came to support her immediately. She and Crocodile have known each other for many years. At first, they had known each other because of the talents of the Whitebeard pirates. The two had a battle for several days. Finally, Crocodile agreed as Shichibukai, this matter is over. After Lasana blocked the desert sword, she immediately rushed towards Crocodile, snowflakes flying around her. As an old opponent, Crocodile naturally knew the power of this seemingly fluttering snowflake, so she didn't dare to care about it, and quickly retreated. Lasana opened a distance, and then used her abilities to fight against Lasana. In the end, Marco and others still did not block the crazy output of Akainu. The headed Marco was directly bombarded by Akainu. The rest of the pirates also screamed and fell to the ground. Even Akainu was pale and attacked. It consumes too much of his physical strength. Even if he is an Iron Man, there is time to buffer. After taking a few deep breaths, Akainu lifted his feet and walked towards Marco and other pirates who were also exhausted. This time, no one can save you again. With that, he was preparing for the final blow to completely solve Marco and others, but at this moment. Let's stop here. A tender and terrified shout sounded, and a small figure suddenly ran into the crowd, blocking the middle of the pirates such as Akainu and Marco, crying bitterly, and glaring at Akainu with excitement. Marine. The person who rushed out suddenly turned out to be Marine, which shocked the entire Marineford people. Marine's people were shocked that their soldiers would stop Akainu, and the pirate was shocked that Marine would actually intercede for them. What's the situation? Akainu was also taken aback when he saw the short soldier who suddenly rushed out. His mind suddenly seemed to remember. He remembered that this scene also appeared in the anime. Kirby, who was familiar with Luffy, came out to stop Akainu. In a sense, he saved Luffy and some pirates. It's just because the war has been fought until now, Akainu has been participating in the war, so much so that he didn't even think of this one. He didn't react until Kirby appeared. But after reacting, it was accompanied by endless anger. What is Kirby's behavior called? To say that he is a traitor is light, and he is simply an ungrateful person. He knows Kirby's experience. This guy is definitely a strange thing. It is clear that the pirates have killed him miserably. As a result, He is now pleading for the Whitebeard pirate group, which has nothing to do with him. This is called benevolence and righteousness? Suddenly, an unverbal anger surged from Akainu's heart. This anger was unprecedented. If he was very angry at Garp's behavior just now, it was because Garp wanted to save Luffy, and it was just because Luffy was Garp's grandson. It was derived from blood relationship. If it was him, he would be almost impossible. We'll make the same choice as Garp. After all, family love cannot be given up. Garp is just for a Luffy. Luffy is his grandson, even if he is a pirate, but also his grandson. But apart from saving Luffy, he did not prevent Marine from killing the pirate. Even at critical moments, he still uses his power against the Whitebeard pirate group, shows that his justice is not wrong. Kobe is different. He has nothing to do with these pirates, but because of the so-called justice in his heart, he wants to save these pirates. He completely forgot his identity and how the pirates killed them. How his companions almost killed him. They didn't even think of the people who were killed by these pirates. As a Marine, I worked with the pirates and regarded the pirates as their companions. Now it is even more important to save the pirates who killed their companions. Such a soldier with wrong views is indeed not qualified to be a Marine soldier. Kirby was trembling all over, but he didn't know where the courage came from. He still stood firmly, his face covered with tears and snot. His eyes were directed at Akainu. Quit the war. Please stop fighting. You are ruining your lives. Every soldier has family members waiting for them to return. Our goal has been achieved, but we still have to pursue the pirates. Continuing this battle that could have been ended, now it's even more reluctant to save those soldiers who can be saved, and continue to increase the number of victims. Now the fallen soldiers are not just like fools. This angry and desperate roar stunned the entire naval headquarters. Even Garp, who retreated to the back, turned his head in shock and looked at Kirby, who stood in front of Akainu in an incredible manner. Kirby. The other Marines and pirates also looked at Kirby in shock. It is hard to imagine that this little soldier could actually say such a thing, and he was facing the most terrifying man in naval headquarters, Admiral Akainu. Did you finish? After Kirby said these words, Akainu slowly asked. In fact, he could kill Kirby directly when he was speaking, but he didn't do that because he suddenly felt let him speak. Finishing is not necessarily a bad thing. After Kirby spoke, he looked at Akainu with more fear, and his body trembled more severely. The sequelae caused by the awakening of observation haki were also eliminated. Now after Kirby finished speaking, Akainu was not in a hurry. He glanced around all the Marine soldiers behind him, and found that many people's eyes had changed. The murderous gaze disappeared, and replaced by one. At a loss. A Kirby is a fart. Akainu doesn't want him to affect Marine's morale and military spirit, so he must use thunder to solve the consequences of this passage. Boy, being a Marine, but begging for the pirates, so 3 views are wrong. What qualifications do you have to be a Marine? You say we are ruining lives. Ha. Akainu looked at Kirby coldly and suddenly shouted. Then, do you know how many lives these pirates have ruined? If you let them escape from here today, how many people will be killed by them in the future? Our Marines' duty is to protect the sea and the civilians. Everyone who participated in this war has been determined to die, including me. The fallen soldiers are not fools, they are fighting for their faith. A hero who fights for justice is a hero of the world. What you just said, it is not only me that insulted me, but also the soldiers of the entire Marine. A soldier like you with 3 wrong views, do you think other people are just like you? As a soldier, the best thing to do now is to get rid of it. These pirates, instead of being hypocritical like you, full of morality and righteousness, ignoring the sacrifice and justice of their companions, and interceding for the pirates, you are not qualified to be a Marine soldier based on this alone. Speaking of this, Akainu suddenly raised Ryujin Jaka in his hand and shouted loudly. Marine is the righteous teacher who maintains the order of the sea and protects the people. If even we are afraid of death and fear of sacrifice, then the people in the rear need to be protected. What should I do? Following Akainu's words, those Marine soldiers who became confused by Kirby's words, each one had their eyes bright and firm, and then they all looked at Akainu's back with fierce eyes, full of enthusiasm. In fact, this is a normal state. They were only infected by Kirby's words before, but Kirby is just a small soldier. His words can infect ordinary soldiers, but they can't speak to those determined Marine cadres. But Akainu is different. He is Marine Admiral. This war is the absolute protagonist. Compared with the humble Kirby, his prestige in Marine is greater, so his words are more convincing and more convincing. People agree. Fearless of life and death, go forward courageously. This is the belief that a qualified soldier should have. Akainu screamed up to the sky. The entire naval headquarters base reverberated with Akainu's fierce roar. At this moment, all Marine soldiers became firm-eyed, and even the wounded soldiers before became extremely enthusiastic. Yes, Sakazuki Admiral is right. If even we are afraid of death, what should the family and relatives in the back do? What kind of soldier is that kid who dares to disturb the military's mind, so he should be condemned? Should this kid be the pirate's undercover agent? Fearless of life and death, go forward courageously. After bursts of roars, the voices of naval headquarters finally converged into one, uttering an earth-shaking roar. Ishin. This is the real Ishin. Countless Marine officials watched this scene with excitement. The low morale of Marine recovered in an instant, and even more than before, and it was their Marine Admiral Akainu that brought all this. Marine is going to change, some knowledgeable people murmured. Listening to the loud and unanimous roar, Akainu suddenly raised his hand, and the voice stopped immediately, neat and consistent, which shocked people. Akainu pointed the Ryujin Jaka in his hand at Kebi, and shouted sharply, "Such a soldier with wrong views, in the name of my Marine Admiral Akainu, expel this person from Marine and never hire. Expulse Marine, never hire. Expulse Marine, never hire. Expulse Marine, never hire." All the Marines glared at Kirby and roared loudly. Kirby is just a teenager. Where did he experience this kind of scene? He was more frightened than seeing countless corpses and deaths. He sat down on the ground, even crying as if he had forgotten, and stared blankly at those who were right. Marine soldier he glared at. Kirby. Garp clenched his fists, but in the end he let out a helpless sigh. Akainu's momentum has been achieved. Now even if he goes out, he can't help Kirby, so he can only watch and sigh in his heart. Sengoku, Suru, and Zephyr, who had not taken a shot from behind, all looked at Akainu in shock. Furfurfur, Akainu really picked a perfect time. Sengoku's Marine Marshal's position may be unstable. Doflamingo laughed gleefully. In this war, Akainu was so popular. On the contrary, Sengoku was nothing good. This formed a sharp contrast, so after the war, everyone can foresee unpleasant things that will happen. Hayward stared at Akainu's back with zeal. At this moment, he wished to become an ordinary soldier, standing behind Akainu, waving the flag for him, but unfortunately he can't do it now, so he can only stay here and envy him. Watched. Me. Kirby heard that Akainu kicked him out of Marine. He was stupid, and he didn't have the courage he had shown before. But Akainu doesn't care about him at all. Perhaps Kirby has awakened observation hockey, a young man with great potential, but among the huge Marine, the most important thing is people with potential, not to mention a 25 son. He pointed his blade straight at the pirate ahead and shouted, "Listen to my orders and kill the pirate. Never allow anyone to escape. Kill." The whole army roared in shock, and the Marine soldiers rushed to the pirates like wolves. Marco and other pirates have become very serious. By now, they have been prepared for a desperate fight, so even if they face the crazy Marine, they will not have the slightest fear. Marco roared, "Brothers, it's time to avenge the old man, kill." At this moment, the two sides really abandoned life and death, and there was only one belief in their hearts, that was to completely eliminate the other party. As for Kirby, who had just caused a sensation, it was completely ignored. No one would care about the existence of such a small person. What he said was just being treated as a joke. Marine kicked him out. Do you still expect the pirate to see him? Boom. Just as Marine and the pirate were about to come into contact with each other, suddenly a blade of sword light soared from the sky, and it happened to be slashed in the middle of the two sides, making the two men and horses struggling to smash all startled, and quickly stopped. Who is it? Such a terrifying slash of the sword light shocked both Marine and the pirate. At the same time, they stopped and asked sternly. A figure appeared silently between the two men and horses. Although there was only one person, when Marine and the pirate saw this person, they all showed shock. Redhead, New World Pirate 4 Emperors, Redhead Shanks. That's right. The man who appeared between Marine and the pirate is one of the 4 emperors, the most famous pirate in New World, the red-haired Shanks, the most hockey pirate in the sea. A conspicuous red hair, wearing a black cloak, the empty sleeves of the left arm fluttering in the wind, a white cloak, the lower part of the body is wearing a patterned cropped trousers, the famous swordy griffin on the waist. This person is Wei, the captain of the red hair pirates that shook the sea, the red-haired Shanks. Redhead Shanks, you are finally here. Among these people at naval headquarters, the only surprise is Akainu. He had known Shanks' arrival a long time ago, but he didn't expect Shanks to come so quickly. In the comics, Shanks did not arrive until the end of the war, but this time the top war was obviously different from that in the comics. Under Akainu's control, the use time was shorter and the pirates collapsed more quickly. Quick. But I didn't expect that even so, Shanks arrived here at the last minute. In the middle of the crowd, Shanks, who was watched by countless lights, had a grim expression, completely ignoring so many gazes. The Pirate 4 Emperors is red-haired Shanks. Didn't the information say that he is in the New World, fighting the 4 Emperors Kaido? How could he appear in Marineford? Yeah, there is still such news before the war. How long is it? How can they get here so fast? Red Hair Pirates and Beasts Pirates are fighting in the New World. This is well-known news. Because of this, Naval Headquarters will have no scruples and prepare to fight the Whitebeard pirates to the death. Unexpectedly, it will be a big victory in the end. At that time, the red-haired Shanks actually ran over, as if he was still ready to help the pirates. Holding the handle of the knife, Shanks looked at Marine in front of him, and said solemnly, "I'm here not to fight, but to end this war." End the war? What nonsense are you talking about? We Marine have already won. We are just about to wipe out the remnants of the pirates. Are you guys talking about ending the war? We are Marine. What qualifications do you have as a pirate to point out here? The Marine soldiers who were inspired by Akainu's words before, heard Shanks' words, they all showed anger, pointed at Shanks one after another, they even killed Whitebeard. Are they afraid of your red-haired Shanks? Shanks ignored Marine's curse, turned his head and said to Marco, "Marco, listen to me, don't fight anymore." Red hair. Marco looked angry, but he pressed his patience and did not try to be strong. How could he not see that they have no chance of winning anymore? If they continue to fight, they will only be wiped out. Shanks will be able to come forward and save them at this time. He hadn't thought about it. If he could really return to New World, how could he be unwilling? Shanks nodded at him, then turned around, and walked towards where Akainu was. Marines on both sides saw Shanks approaching. They both looked tight and prepared to intercept. Finally, Akainu waved his hand to signal them to disperse. Open. Walking to the front of Akainu, Shanks stopped, looked at Akainu coldly, and said, "If the fight continues, it will only increase the losses of the two parties without limit, and the war is over." Akainu looked cold, and said disdainfully, "We Marine has completely controlled the situation. It is only a matter of time before the remaining pirates are wiped out. As for the loss you mentioned, it is not worth mentioning. Do you think we Marine will be afraid of death? What's more, you are a pirate. What right do you have to point fingers at us? Sakazuki Admiral is right. We have won this war. Why should I listen to you as a pirate? What about the 4 emperors? It's not that we haven't killed them. Whitebeard is dead, and it's not bad for you to have red hair. We listen to Sakazuki Admiral, and can't let a pirate go." The morale of the Marine soldiers was high, and Shanks was not able to speak with a single word. The reason Shanks in the comics was able to sell Marine was not because of his fruits of face, but the situation of Marine at the time was not good. To chase down the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, on the one hand, they had to face the already established Blackbeard pirates. If a red hair pirates are added, Marine's situation can be quite dangerous. But now is different. The remnants of the Whitebeard pirate group have no room for resistance. It is really only a matter of time to destroy them. As for the Blackbeard pirate group, it was destroyed by Akainu a long time ago, so now Naval Headquarters has completely controlled the situation. Even if facing Shanks's red hair pirates, there is no slightest nervousness or worry. Not to mention anything else, now the one who is chasing the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates is led by Admiral Akainu, and there is Marshal Sengoku in the rear. Admiral Kizaru and Aokiji did not take action. Not to mention that there are Marine seniors such as Zephyr and Crane. Most seniors belonging to the Sengoku side did not take action. At this time, even if one of the 4 emperors of the pirates, red hair pirates, participated in the battle, Marine was not afraid. In this situation, even if Shanks really has face fruit, I'm afraid no one will give him face. At the very least, Akainu just refuses the red hair without giving him any face. Faced with Akainu's refusal without hesitation, Shanks didn't show any unexpected expressions, but his face became more grim. Your Marine's original purpose was only to execute Firefist Ace, but now Ace is dead and Whitebeard has also died in battle. The remaining people are no longer enough to pose any threat to your Marine. Why do you need to be so aggressive? Akainu said, "You are a pirate who decides whether there is a threat or not. We are Marine, and our duty is to maintain law and order on the sea, and your pirates are the mobs on the sea and must be killed." Shanks said solemnly, "What if I want you to sell me a bit and end this war?" Akainu categorically refused. Marine will not compromise with the pirates, let alone your face. Shanks stared at Akainu closely, suddenly pulled out the knife. The blade was glowing with cold, and said coldly, "It seems that you haven't had enough trouble. If this is the case, I will be with you next." After finishing speaking, I saw several figures suddenly rushed out of the Dragonhead battleship that had been docked on the coast, and quickly appeared behind Shanks and confronted Akainu. I am an official crew member of Red Hair Pirates. Seeing the pirates behind Shanks, all the people present took a breath, because these people are the famous big pirates in the sea. Standing together, these people showed the photo. Human power. Even Akainu, after seeing these people, his expression became very solemn, but he did not shrink and nervous at all. What's more, he was Marine Admiral. He didn't need to speak at all. There were more than a dozen Marine generals standing. Behind him, strengthen the momentum for him. If you want to follow in Whitebeard's footsteps, then I can satisfy you too. An astonishing haki erupted from his body. At the same time, Shanks also erupted the same haki. The two hakis collided in an instant, and there was a terrible sonic boom in the air, and it continued. Cracks appeared on the ground. So scary haki. The haki duel between the two was terrifying. The people around were forced to retreat by these two tyrannical hakis, leaving only Akainu and Shanks. Just when Akainu and Shanks were confronting, in the square of Marine Base, a dark shadow suddenly rose up into the sky, flapping its wings and preparing to leave. If you get close, you will find that it is a person who is flying, and also bring one person. The person who flew into the air was a member of the Blackbeard Pirates, the Devil Security Officer, Rafit, and the person he brought was naturally the captain of their Blackbeard Pirates, who was beaten by Akainu and Whitebeard to Blackbeard, who has never been aware of it. It has to be said that Blackbeard is indeed resistant to fights. He has suffered so many attacks from Whitebeard and Akainu before and he is not dead yet, but Dark Fruit has suffered double the pain, which has caused him to still not wake up. Even whether he can wake up or not is still unknown. After all, pain can be fatal. Because Blackbeard was blasted by Akainu and Whitebeard, the Blackbeard Pirates fell apart. Akainu slaughtered a Van Oka. Burgess was also defeated by Marine Vice Admiral Doberman and captured. The rest of the pirates fled. There is one Rafit left. Rafit is different from others. He is the first group of people to follow Blackbeard. He sees hope from Blackbeard. Blackbeard has ambitions, and he also has the ambition to realize his ambitions. He feels that following Blackbeard will definitely be able to dominate the sea. That's why I joined the Blackbeard pirate group and made suggestions for Blackbeard. When the others saw that Blackbeard was defeated, they all lost confidence in Blackbeard, but he did not. Instead, he was looking for a chance to rescue Whitebeard. Not to mention, Rafit is really capable. Among the marine crowd, he can guarantee that he will not be caught. Now, taking advantage of all the eyes of Akainu and Shanks, he finds Blackbeard smoothly and uses himself. He was ready to take Blackbeard away. This opportunity was very well grasped. Most of Marine's eyes were attracted, but it was not absolute. The moment Rafid dragged Blackbeard to fly, he was already caught. A golden light soared into the sky, and Rafid flying into the sky in the middle, and produced a violent explosion. Underground Kizaru stretched lazily, watching the bombed Rafit, and slowly said, "This war can't let Sakazuki monopolize the limelight, and we have to leave some soup for us." Because Akainu was too invincible, Kizaru, who is also Marine Admiral, took a lot more leisurely. Standing behind watching Akainu led the troops to show Kamui. I didn't expect to have a surprise in the end. The members of the Blackbeard Pirates were unexpectedly happy. He wanted to escape, and was immediately beaten upright by him. I have to say that Blackbeard is really miserable. He was beaten to death before, and now he was beaten to death even without consciousness. It was a person sitting at home, and disaster came from the sky. Although Rafit had good abilities, his resistance was not good. After being hit by Kizaru, he was immediately controlled by the marine below. This time, he really didn't even have a chance to escape. What happened in the rear did not affect the situation in the front. Akainu and Shanks were still facing each other, but they only used haki to collide, and they had not yet officially started their hands. For the red-haired Shanks, Akainu's senses are not even as good as Whitebeard's. There is no doubt that he hates pirates, but he is not irrelevant. He can still clearly distinguish various situations and differences. Take Whitebeard and Shanks as an example. Shanks acted like an adventurer. He didn't fight for power and didn't show the ambition to dominate the sea. But in Akainu's view, it was a big joke. Have no ambitions to compete for the position of the Pirate Four Emperors. If you don't have ambitions, you still recruit pirates everywhere and dominate the New World side. Don't talk about being forced and helpless. If you really have no ambitions, why don't you learn from Rayleigh and live in seclusion? Don't follow the example of other members of the Roger Pirates and hide in hiding? After all, Shanks is not without ambition, but ambition is bigger than the sky. Why does he value Luffy? Don't say anything at first sight. At least Akainu doesn't believe it. Akainu thinks Shanks fancy Luffy's potential only a little bit more because of Luffy's identity. If Luffy didn't have a grandfather like Garp or a father like Dragon, he would have died a long time ago. Even if you have the protagonist's halo, it's useless. Shanks cultivated Luffy because he wanted to make Luffy the One Piece, and then to stir the wind and clouds of the sea, so as to achieve his goal, and even Akainu couldn't help thinking that Shanks was probably the man behind this sea. 1. As for Whitebeard, although his turf is the largest among the four emperors of pirates, he is actually the least ambitious one, because after Roger's death, he is the most promising one to become the king of pirates, but he did not do that. For a person who only wants to live with his family, how ambitious can he have? Even if I recruited Ace, I never said I would train Ace to become a One Piece, At least I didn't say it in front of other people, and the name of Whitebeard did protect a large part of people, even as a pirate. Protecting the people is a joke, but at least it is many times better than Shanks. If Shanks doesn't show up, it's fine. Now that he has appeared, Akainu really has the idea of beheading him. Just do it when he thinks of it. Akainu takes the lead, and the lava fist blasts towards the red hair. Clang. The lava fist did not hit Shanks, but was blocked by him with a knife. It's not the first time Akainu and Shanks met, but the last time they met was more than 10 years ago. That time Red Hair Pirates was almost defeated by Akainu, so there is still a deep hatred between them, but since then, they haven't been in contact for more than 10 years, and this time it was at this time. Akainu, do you really want to fight me? Shanks shouted to Akainu in a cold voice, and then asked Sengoku standing behind. Marshal Sengoku, are you really going to fight for me? If you really want to choose this way, then I will definitely accompany you. Bong Pai, Bong Pai, Bong Pai. The pirates on the Dragonhead battleship of Red Hair Pirates responded to Shanks, and Red Hair Pirates went up and down Ishin, just like the previous Whitebeard pirates. Shanks knows very well that it is absolutely impossible to compromise with Akainu based on Akainu's hatred of the pirates, so he can only pin his hopes on Sengoku. Not to look at what he said is so determined, but he really doesn't want to go to war with Marine. As soon as he was not prepared enough, he brought so many people, and secondly, he was not sure that he could fight against Marine. Sengoku in the back heard what Shanks said, and the pirates who looked at the excited Red Hair Pirates, his face looked very ugly. Shanks was threatening him in public. If he backed down, wouldn't it be too embarrassing? But if it's any more, the battle with Red Hair Pirates was not what he thought, so he hesitated in his heart, and didn't say anything for a while. Sengoku didn't answer immediately. Akainu had something to say. He immediately pulled out Ryujin Jaka and shouted coldly, Red Hair, don't take yourself too seriously. You, a pirate, dare to threaten us and let you run away. You won't be so lucky once. A crimson sword light flashed by and landed directly on Shanks' head. Shanks didn't expect Akainu to be so determined and gloomy, using his katana to block the swordlight. Akainu, don't push people too much. Do you think that you can still be my opponent based on your state? If you really want to fight with us, I will accompany you too, but I don't want to take advantage of others. You have just gone through a great war, and when you have suffered heavy losses, we will go to war with you again. Shanks said loudly to Akainu. Hearing this, Akainu laughed a few times, and said with disdain, You really take yourself seriously? Do you think you stand taller than me? Not your opponent. You can try it. Even if I am now, you can still kill you in the same state as you are. Besides, we, Marine, shouldn't take advantage of you. As long as you have the courage, then come. Shanks' words really make people laugh. Don't want to take advantage of others. Although Marine had fought with the Whitebeard pirates for so long and suffered heavy losses, the foundation is still there. There are 100,000 Marine soldiers, and now there are at least 60 to 70,000, or even more. And what about the Shanks pirates? There is only one ship, and even if the entire ship is full, it will be counted. Even if Red Hair Pirates still has a lot of high-end combat power, doesn't Marine have it? Among Marine 3 Admiral, Kizaru and Aokiji are both in very good condition. Even if Akainu is in poor condition, they would not look down on Shanks. Under this circumstance, Shanks actually showed that I don't want to take advantage of others and save you face. You should listen to me obediently, and give people the feeling of being condescending to give alms. At least this is in Akainu. It sounds like this. Just like what Akainu said, you Shanks are a fart. Even if you were one of the 4 emperors, but Marine just killed Whitebeard. Whitebeard's name is bigger than you, but it's not dead to us. In hand? It is precisely because of the killing of Whitebeard and the explosion of the Whitebeard pirates, so Marine is full of confidence. Even in the face of the entire Red Hair Pirates, there is no slightest worry. Kill. At this time, Doberman, the highest-ranked Akainu under his hand, saw that Akainu had already fought with the red-haired Shanks, and he burst into a shout, and rushed to the pirates behind Shanks first. Suddenly, the naval headquarters, which had already calmed down, resounded again, and the crew of Red Hair Pirates immediately rushed down from the pirate ship and greeted Marine. The pirates on the side of the Whitebeard pirate map, who stopped because of Shanks' words, also did it again. In fact, Marco and other captains in the Whitebeard pirate map are also very helpless. They thought that after Shanks appeared, Marine would give him face and stop the war. But they didn't expect Sengoku to speak, and Akainu just started it, leaving no room at all, helpless. Under the circumstances, they could only raise their morale again and fight with Marine again. After starting with Shanks, Akainu didn't dare to care about it. If he was in his heyday, he would certainly not be afraid, but now it's different. Successive battles cost him a lot, especially the battle with Whitebeard. The stamina dropped for several consecutive waves. Let alone he was injured, it's just not very serious. Although Shanks came quickly, his spirits were kept the best. The two also used weapons, the blades flashed, and accompanied by the continuous emergence of magma. The fighting momentum was not inferior to the fight between Akainu and Whitebeard just now. The only difference is that both of them are in close combat, and there is no such large-scale amplification move as before. Compared to 10 years ago, Shanks's strength has undoubtedly undergone earth-shaking changes. Although he has only one arm, he wields a famous knife. As for Akainu, Ryujin Jaka is like an arm in his hand. It is not an exaggeration to say that a human knife is one. It is just the simplest chop every time, but it also makes Shanks handle it with great caution. Standing behind the crowd, Hawkeye's gaze like a falcon stared at the battle between Akainu and Shanks. He did not leave after Shanks appeared, but stayed, like in the comics. After Akainu and Shanks fought, they were even more engrossed, not letting go of any action. As the world's top swordsman, there are not many swordsmen who can attract the attention of eagle eyes, but Shanks and Akainu are undoubtedly the strongest among them. Needless to say, Shanks, but Akainu can compare with Shanks in the use of knives. Contend, which completely exceeded Hawkeye's expectations. Xiaohei, what do you think? Sengoku asked Vice Admiral, who was walking next to him. Subaru naturally knew what Sengoku was asking. She said, "It's up to you to fight or not to fight." Sengoku asked again, "Then what do you think?" Crane thought for a while, and then replied, "If you want to listen to my opinion, then I can only say that the two options have their pros and cons." "How do you say?" Sengoku said, "Although we have experienced a big battle now, the main force still exists. Since Sakazuki chose to shoot directly, it means that he is still sure. He is not the kind of person who ignores the situation of the battle in order to eradicate the pirates, the Whitebeard pirate. There are not many pirates left in the regiment. Even those with red hair pirates are also very limited in number. It is not a concern. The only thing to worry about is the official crew headed by Shanks." Crane slowly said. Sengoku's brows furrowed, and Crane said such a paragraph, but he didn't say whether he should or shouldn't be hit. He simply analyzed some truths that everyone knows. After hesitating in his heart, Sengoku still chose to remain silent, because it was already fighting, and everyone else was not afraid. If he, Marshal Marine, forcibly stopped it, it would only increase the pirate's power and demoralize himself. Sengoku did not speak, and naturally defaulted to the battle, so other marine executives would naturally not be able to watch Akainu fight red hair pirates alone. Kizaru and Aokiji took the lead in joining the battlefield and faced Ben Beckman and Lackey of red hair pirates respectively. Rode, the other powerful vice admiral, also rushed to the rest of the pirates. This time the battlefield between Marine and the pirates directly stretched around the coast. Marine headquarters faced the two Four Emperors pirate regiments of New World. This can be said to be the largest war ever between Marine and the pirates. The Four Emperors fight against thieves, a situation that even the naval headquarters in the world government hadn't anticipated. This battle situation was transmitted to the world government holy place Marie Joyce at the fastest speed. 5 elders and Sora were also frowned upon receiving the news. Before they received news, the Whitebeard pirate group was already facing collapse, and the pirate Whitebeard was about to die, but unexpectedly another wave of intelligence evolved into a battle with red hair pirates, although Whitebeard had already been killed. Good news, but fighting with red hair pirates is not good news. "Isn't the red hair fighting in New World and Kaido? How come you get to naval headquarters so soon?" said the old star of the long beard. Sora said, "It must have been some negotiation between red hair and Kaido, that's why the battle ended so quickly. The red-haired Shanks and Kaido are both New World pirate Four Emperors. If Shanks can defeat Kaido so quickly, then there is a problem. If Shanks is really that strong, can the pirate Four Emperors reach a balance?" The old bald star with a knife said, "But this time Akainu did a very good job. Not only did he kill Firefist Ace, he also killed Whitebeard. If it weren't for the red hair, the Whitebeard pirates might not exist. As for the red hair, he is really too self-righteous. Akainu's choice is right." The bald old star in the green suit said, "Whether the choice is correct is still to be discussed. Although Marine defeated the Whitebeard pirates, whether he should continue to fight the red hair is not a decision by Akainu. Did he not consider the consequences?" The old bald star with a knife said, "What are the consequences? Although the strength of red hair pirates is very strong, the strength of Marine is not weak, and now a group of high-level combat strengths led by Akainu are still there, enough to deal with red hair pirates. 5 elders are 5 people. Of course, opinions cannot be unified. If you agree, you will naturally be dissatisfied." Kong also spoke at this time. "I think Sakazuki's choice is not wrong. Marine is just taking advantage of the victory, even red hair pirates can handle it." The old star with a black suit and white curly hair said solemnly, "Anyway, now Marine has started fighting with red hair pirates. We can just wait for the result here." Indeed, although they are the highest level of the world government and can control the marine headquarters, after all, it is a war period. They cannot directly command, so they can only wait quietly in the rear. Fortunately, Sengoku, Crane, etc. in marine people are veterans who have experienced many battles, and they should be able to cope with any situation. There is one thing. Garp violated Marine's military discipline for his pirate grandson, and even acted with Sakazuki. We must not ignore this. Suddenly, the old star with white curly hair, still in a black suit, said. His words made the other people look serious. Several other veterans also expressed their dissatisfaction. Only the time to open their mouths to defend Garp. Garp's behavior at the time was indeed lack of consideration, but after all, it is his grandson. If he is indifferent when he sees his grandson being killed, it is impossible for normal people to do it. This is not a reason. The old bald star with a knife said coldly. Sora continued. Gar has been a marine for his whole life after all. His belief in marine will never be a problem. This time, even if there is a mistake, I think it should be a small punishment. This issue will be discussed after the war is over. After this war is over, many things must be changed. In the end, neither five elders nor Sora negotiated a result, and both decided to wait until the war ended. If you say who is the most anxious person right now, it must be the audience in Saboti Archipelago. Many of them have spent a lot of energy to come here in order to be able to watch the whole show through live broadcast. The trend of the war. But I came over excitedly, but in the end I only saw the first half and saw nothing in the second half. All of them were angry and wanted to kill. The entire square where the live broadcast was full of turmoil and chaos. What happened to the war? Is Whitebeard dead? Why not let us watch it? What do those idiots mean? Why haven't we repaired the live broadcast until now? We are all spending money. Yeah, I have to give an explanation. Lousy finally bought this good position. Are you kidding people? Many people who watch the live broadcast have spent a lot of money to get a good position. Now they only see part of it, so they are naturally very dissatisfied. However, in the face of the anger of the audience, the people in charge of the Square live broadcast are also very anxious. They can't help it. The signal is cut off by the naval headquarters people. If the signal is not connected, they can't broadcast anything. Dark Hound. Akainu screamed and used a trick. Dark Hound is characterized by super fast speed, strong penetrating power, and full of lethality. Even the red-haired Shanks' reaction cannot be avoided and can only be forced to take it. Boom. Although Dark Hound's lethality passes through the katana, Shanks was not punched through by this punch, but instead used his haki to block the magma fist out of the body, but he could not stop the powerful impact of this punch. The whole person was blown away. But Shanks did not suffer. When he was hit, he also slashed out. He used Haki's stab to slash Akainu's small arm, leaving a scar. Although it is not serious, it is finally injured. Arrived Akainu. It's a super powerful punch. No wonder it can kill Whitebeard. Shanks wiped off the bloodline at the corner of his mouth. Even he was injured after this Dark Hound, but fortunately his haki was strong enough to not let Akainu's magma hit the inside of his body, otherwise he would only be injured. Heavier. At the same time, he no longer has any hesitation about Akainu's ability to kill Whitebeard. Akainu, who has experienced a series of battles, is able to injure him, which shows how terrifying his strength is. Take down Akainu. Akainu also looked down at the shallow scar left on his arm, knowing that his haki has been upgraded to a very high level through the system, but he did not expect Shanks to be able to remove him when he fully used haki. Injury, this time can leave a scar, it means that it can cause more injuries. But he didn't care. It was only possible. As long as he could take the lead in exploding Shanks before he was seriously injured, then no matter how strong Shanks' attack was, it would be of no use. Shanks glanced around and found that after Marine and the pirates went to war, the situation was not good for them. After all, this time he brought not many people. Even if all of them were elite, there were too many people who could not hold Marine, and they are all elites selected from all over the world. For just a moment, Shanks had a foreboding that if they continued to fight, their odds of winning would never be high. Akainu, you and I can see that if we continue to fight like this, we will only lose out in the end. Why not take a step back and end this meaningless war? In this regard, Akainu sneered disdainfully, and said, What? I feel that the situation is not under control, so I want to regress. Red hair. What do you think this is? This is naval headquarters. Only Marine can call the shots. It's not even your turn for a pirate to come and dictate. He wants to fight. If he can't fight, he wants to make a peace. Do you really think you are at the highest point? Whatever you want? Shanks's complexion became very ugly when he was so despised, and haki on his body became stronger and stronger. Akainu continued. Being touted by those ignorant people, do you really think you are the most haki person in the world? Shanks didn't speak anymore, but his aura grew stronger and stronger. Aiming the blade in his hand at Akainu, it was obvious what it meant. And Akainu also had sharp eyes, killing Ryujin Jaka, holding hands tightly, and magma erupted. A weird atmosphere permeated between the two of them, making the atmosphere very depressing. No one dared to approach the battlefield of the two of them. Only Sengoku and others in the rear stared at them. This war, the final result may depend on which of the two wins in the end. Two sharp blades appeared, and the whole world seemed to be cut open. The ice in the bay and on the coast was smashed by a huge force. Pieces of ice shattered, and even the sky was smashed. Open, dark clouds obscure the sun, just like the last days. The pirate and marine who were fighting stopped at the same time, all looking towards the location of Akainu and Shanks. The earth-shattering blade light disappeared, finally revealing the figures of Akainu and Shanks. Both of them were in bad condition. They were several meters apart, staring at each other, but they didn't make any more moves. The blood of Shanks's right hand holding the knife dripped continuously, and the clothes on the entire upper body had disappeared, revealing a strong body, especially in front of his body. There was a scar that pierced through the upper body, and it was red, and the flesh and blood could be seen vaguely. Turned out, the injury was very serious. The opposite Akainu was also injured, leaving a scar on his right shoulder to his chest. Although he was recovering slowly, Akainu himself was breathing continuously. Holding Ryujin Jaka in his right hand, there was even a slight tremor. Obviously it's not good either. Shanks stared at Akainu for a long time, and suddenly said, "We can withdraw from Marineford, as long as you hand over the remains of Whitebeard and Ace." No one thought that Shanks, who was so strong just now, would actually say such a thing. Only a few people can see why. Shanks and Akainu are both injured and they seem to be equally divided, but don't forget, Akainu just participated in a series of events. Shanks is in full bloom against the war, but even in this situation, the two are still losing each other, and anyone with a discerning eye can see who is strong and who is weak. Impossible. Akainu refused again without hesitation. Just kidding, he wanted to get rid of Shanks. How could he let him go, and even catch the remains of Whitebeard and Ace, which he would never agree with? Neither the Whitebeard pirates nor you don't even want to leave Marineford today. Shanks said in a deep voice. If I want to leave, none of you can stop it. This is my last concession. If you are messing around, then we really can only continue playing, but if you think I don't have a hole card, then you are wrong. I dare to come here, naturally I have my certainty. If you want to fight to the end, I'm afraid you can't bear the consequences. Of course, Akainu will not be bluffed by Shanks. He can't control that much. This is the best time to get rid of Shanks. If this opportunity is missed, I don't know when it will happen next time. Sakazuki. But just as Akainu was about to sternly refuse, suddenly Sengoku stood up and said in a deep voice, "First I'm Marshal Marine, and this matter is up to me." Akainu raised her brows and said, "Marshal Sengoku, this matter." "Okay. I said let me deal with it." Sengoku interrupted Akainu unceremoniously, then walked out from behind, faced Shanks, and spoke slowly. "Red hair. I know the purpose of your coming to Marineford. You can take away the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates, but you don't have to think about the others." Sengoku agreed with the red hair to take the remnants of the Whitebeard pirates. He also had his own considerations. He also saw that in the previous battle, it may be difficult for Shanks to defeat Akainu, but in the same way, they want to keep Shanks' difficulty. Even though there are still people in Marine who have not participated in the war, including him, his abilities cannot be used unlimitedly. He is old and his physical fitness has long been unable to compare with before. As for Garp, he made a mistake. It is even more impossible to be allowed to play, so it is really difficult for Marine to win red hair pirates by relying on crowd tactics. If Shanks goes crazy and Ishin wants to fight naval headquarters to the end, no one knows what will happen in the end. Therefore, Sengoku, who has always sought stability, still did not choose fierce means, but agreed to Shanks's proposal. Another point is that although Marine is now full of morale, he clearly sees that most of the soldiers are very tired. After all, it has been a long time since the war began, even if it was most of his time. They are all chasing and killing the pirates, but this also requires physical strength, so after a long time, of course it will appear very tired. Hearing Sengoku's words, Shanks hadn't done much yet, but the hawkish Marine generals headed by Akainu all showed a gloomy look. This was obviously a war of more victory than defeat, but Sengoku forced it to his Marshal Marine prevented this war. They were naturally very dissatisfied. But dissatisfaction returns to dissatisfaction. At this time, even Akainu will not come out to demolish Sengoku's platform. Shanks frowned and said, "Whitebeard and Ace have both died in battle. You have already won this battle. Why should you leave their bodies? Even if they are enemies, you should at least give them some respect." "Red hair. What nonsense are you talking about? The first level of Whitebeard and Firefist represents our victory and glory. How can we give you a pirate? Immediately, Marine General yelled out of dissatisfaction. It was Dob. Man. Sengoku raised his hand and motioned Doberman to stop talking. He glanced at the bodies of Whitebeard and Ace, thought for a moment, and was about to speak, but Akainu suddenly interjected. This matter is definitely not agreeable. Interrupted again. Sengoku immediately shouted to Akainu angrily. Sakazuki, I said, this matter is up to me. You want to be the master. Wait until you sit where I am. Sengoku was already very upset, so now he yelled at Akainu directly in front of the pirate, and didn't save any face. Sengoku was angry, but Akainu was calm, and said faintly, you are Martial Marine, of course you can call the shots, but you can't ignore the opinions of our bloody fighters. Both Whitebeard and Firefist were killed by me. Yes, their first rank is an honor for me. You are going to hand them over to the pirates. Can't I put forward any opinions? Many Marine soldiers and generals nodded secretly. Even though Akainu is respectable and scary, everyone sees his Ishin's thoughts on Marine, not to mention that Akainu's contribution to this war is the greatest, since the beginning of the war. The layout of the battlefield, to slay a large number of pirates, kill Huoquan and Whitebeard, it is not an exaggeration to say that half of the credit goes to Akainu, and it is certainly not an exaggeration to express your own opinions now. Of course, there are also people who are very dissatisfied with Akainu, because Sengoku is a marshal after all, and is most qualified to represent Marine. If you question him on the spot, it's just a crime. No one will give you a good face. Sengoku said coldly to Akainu. You can make comments, but I also have the power to veto. Also, I will be solely responsible for what I say and decisions made. Therefore, you only have to obey the orders. That's all right, the others, don't talk about it anymore. When it comes to this, what else can Akainu say? He can only step back a few steps and hand over the home court to Sengoku. After calming down, Sengoku said to Shanks again. Okay, Red Hair, I agree to your proposal. You can take away the bodies of Whitebeard and Firefist, but we Marine won this battle. Shanks nodded and said, thank you, I understand. After leaving, I will never make any comments that are unfavorable to your Marine. That's the best. After discussing with Shanks, the entire battlefield became quiet. The decision of the top leaders of the two Marines and pirates meant the end of this war. Whether it was pirates or Marine, they were relieved. After making the decision, Sengoku raised his hand and shouted, the war is over. Heal the wounded soon. Finally, there was no need to fight anymore. Even the Marine who defeated one side shouted in excitement. The pirates were collecting the bodies of their companions, and Marine was even more busy to treat the wounded. Akainu looked at this scene with a grim face. Such a great opportunity was wasted by Sengoku. He felt it was a pity, but even he couldn't help it. After all, Sengoku was Martial Marine. Teacher, just let them go like this. Lasana returned to Akainu and asked him in a low voice. She hated the pirates like Akainu, but now she has to watch Marine swagger away in front of them. Her dissatisfaction is hard to conceal. Akainu didn't speak. He knew exactly what Lasana was thinking, but what could he do? But one thing is fortunate. Although the Red Hair pirates were not destroyed this time, the Blackbeard pirates were also destroyed. There is no need to worry about losing the body of Whitebeard, and the ability to be captured by Shock Fruit. After a while, Shock Fruit's ability will completely disappear from Whitebeard's corpse. The next time Shock Fruit reappears, I don't know when it will be. The remnants of the Red Hair pirates and the Whitebeard pirates group quickly gathered the bodies of their companions, and then quickly left by boat. This is the last time. Akainu looked at the direction the pirate was leaving, his eyes flickered, and he let the pirate go. This was absolutely unbearable for him, but now he can only endure it, but he is determined in his heart. It's the last time. Go to rescue the wounded immediately. Akainu gave orders to the Marine soldiers around him, and the entire naval headquarters was busy immediately. Because there were so many collapsed buildings, I don't know how many people were crushed underneath, so Marine's rescue work is definitely not easier than during the battle. The war is over, it looks like Marine won. In the sea not far from Marineford, a group of ships docked there. Some of them were pirates and some were people who watched the war. However, because the momentum of the war was too shocking, they didn't dare to approach at all, they just hid in the distance, waiting for the result. Trafalgar Law looked at Marineford in front of him. He used to stay there for a while. He felt that there was a cage, so he didn't want to go anymore. This time he came here just to watch the end of the war. Whitebeard is dead. Now New World is going to be messed up, and we have to go to New World as soon as possible. There are many people who have the same idea as Luo. In the past, New World was mostly controlled by the Pirate Four Emperors. It is difficult for ordinary pirates to get ahead, but now Whitebeard is dead, which is a bad thing for some people, but for more seas. For the thieves, they couldn't ask for it. After all, once Whitebeard died, they would have a chance to rise, which was good news for them. The war on the top of the world that shook the world was finally over. Although the war had twists and turns, it ended with the victory of Marine. The captain of the Whitebeard pirate group and the head of the 4 emperors of the New World pirates, Whitebeard, died in Marineford and was publicly executed. The Fire Fist Ace also died in Marineford. The rest of the pirates also suffered heavy losses. The 4 emperors' Whitebeard pirate group collapsed instantly. If not for the last 4 emperors' red-haired shanks, I am afraid that the remnants of the Whitebeard pirate group would also be wiped out. When this information came out, the whole world was a sensation. Almost everyone did not expect that the Whitebeard pirates would suffer such a terrible defeat. In fact, before the start of the war, many people thought that this would be a pinpoint battle against Maimong. Marine and Whitebeard pirates, no matter which side wants to win, it will never be easy. But I never thought that the battle would be so easy. The Whitebeard pirates were not the opponents of naval headquarters at all. Since the beginning of the war, they have been at a disadvantage. They have always been suppressed by Marine, even if Whitebeard fought back several times. Changing the situation of the battle, at best, only caused some trouble for naval headquarters. Especially those who watched the live broadcast of Saboti Archipelago can feel it exactly. After all, although they did not see the complete war process, they also saw the first half. Even the first half fully demonstrated the advantages of Marine. The disadvantage of the Whitebeard pirates is very obvious. Because Marine cut off the live broadcast in time, what happened later, except for the 2 parties involved in the war, was unaware of the fact that the truth was changed after the spread. Some people say that Marine used despicable means to win, and some people say that Marine is already stronger than the Whitebeard pirates, so the victory is of course taken for granted. Others say. But not to mention how to pass, some things have not changed or changed, such as Akainu's record. In this battle, Akainu can be said to be famous all over the world. He was originally the well-known Marine admiral, with a great reputation, but this time let his name resound all over the world. Even in remote places in the 4 seas, there are people know his existence. Killing Fire Fist Ace, killing Whitebeard, Ligang's red-haired shanks, every major event is related to him, so it's hard not to let people know about it. Akainu himself has a great deterrent in the pirate circle, but because he rarely appeared in the past few years, some late pirates didn't know how good he was, but after this time, he became the most Marine admiral of fear. In the end, the appearance of the red-haired pirate 4 emperors shocked many people. The 2 4 emperors came to Marineford, and in the end they weren't Marine's opponents. If it weren't for the appearance of the red-haired, I'm afraid the remnants of the Whitebeard pirate group were all can't leave. Just after Whitebeard's death in the battle and the news that the Whitebeard pirates were defeated by Marineford, New World suddenly changed. The Whitebeard pirates' turf collapsed in a blink of an eye. The pirates and other forces that had been suppressed by Whitebeard began immediately rebelling and frantically snatching the territory that originally belonged to Whitebeard. The entire New World was in chaos. Not to mention the chaos of the New World, even the naval headquarters, it was still very uneasy at this time. The rescue work lasted for several days, and then the wounded were treated and summarized. Soon after the end of the war, the order of the world government was communicated to allow Sengoku and Akainu to go to Marie Joy's as quickly as possible and report to them the affairs of the top war. Since the war, Akainu and Sengoku have been torn apart, so even if they were together, they did not speak, and they became a lot stranger to each other. At the same time, they all knew that going to Marie Joy's this time would definitely happen. Change, they all have their own ideas in their hearts, so they don't want to communicate with each other. This time, it must be successful. On the way to Marie Joy's, Akainu's eyes became fierce. He knew what would happen in this trip to Marie Joy's. This was the most important moment for him in so many years. It's coming, it's coming. He has been in this world for more than 20 years. Looking back on the events of these years, he feels that he has not been in vain. At least he is more colorful than in his previous life. Although many things have not gone well these years, he knows why. Regardless of his strength now, even Whitebeard can kill, but he still knows very little about the world government. But the world government can suppress the world for 800 years, which shows that their power is absolutely beyond imagination. It is precisely because of this that Akainu was still willing to serve them when he knew that the world government was not a qualified ruler, and even wronged himself for it, because he wanted to change, but the Revolutionary Army's philosophy was different from him. It is impossible to be a pirate, so I can only choose this way, first master Marine, and then change the world with the least cost. Sakazuki. While Akainu was thinking alone, Sengoku, who had never spoken to him, suddenly called his name. Akainu responded and looked at Sengoku puzzledly. He didn't expect Sengoku to talk to him at this moment. Sengoku's expression was very complicated, but he still said firmly, even if the war is won this time, my responsibility cannot be concealed. Therefore, I will step down from the position of Marshal Marine soon. Be clear. Akainu did not expect that Sengoku would say such things bluntly. Although he himself thought that Sengoku would definitely step down as Marine Marshal this time, he said it would be different, because according to his knowledge of Sengoku the desire for power is still relatively large. Of course, it can also be said that Sengoku's insistence on justice that he understands is bad or bad, no one can tell. Marshal Sengoku, why are you telling me this? Sengoku looked at Akainu, his face became serious, and said, Sakazuki, I know you have always had ambitions, but I understand your personality, which is more extreme. It is more than enough to be Marine Admiral and eradicate pirates, but Marine Marshal is different from Admiral. You need more responsibility, and you also need more stability. You have a radical personality, and you really are not suitable for being a marshal. Akainu was calm on the surface, but he was already sneered inside. He thought that Sengoku wanted to tell him something. It turned out to be persuading him to give up competing for the position of Marine Marshal, which was really funny. You are the marshal now. As for me, I don't know if I am suitable to be a marshal. Sengoku said, Sakazuki, I know that this is a bit unfair to you, but I hope you will think about it carefully. Marine's job is to maintain the safety of the sea, and a person with compassion is needed to be a marshal. The implication is that Akainu does not have benevolence. For Akainu is mentally prepared, but after hearing Sengoku's words, he still can't help but feel angry in his heart. It's so funny. He didn't realize that Sengoku actually did it before. On the one hand, knowing that he could not be suppressed, he was ready to use words to convince himself, really thinking that he was so easy to deceive as a 3-year-old child. He said, a murderer is not necessarily unkind, but a hypocritical person is the greatest evil. Sengoku's face turned dark. He just said it directly, but Akainu turned around and scolded him for hypocrisy, but he couldn't refute Akainu. After all, he picked up the topic first. At Naval Headquarters, he could use his identity to suppress Akainu, but now there was no way. After all, he knew very well that his position was about to be moved on this trip to the Holy Land. After being pushed back by this sentence, Sengoku stopped talking. He also saw that Akainu had coveted his position for a long time, and he would definitely not be convinced by a few words. It would be a waste of time to continue speaking. But Sengoku really didn't want to put Marine in the hands of Akainu. He always felt that Akainu's character and way of doing things were not suitable for Marine Marshal. He was too aggressive and impulsive and would put Marine on the stove. The Akainu and the two quickly arrived at the Holy Land Marie Joy's. This is not the first time Akainu has been here, but this time they did not have the leisure to watch the prosperity of Marie Joy's, but went directly to where the 5 elders was. Sengoku and Akainu were summoned this time for the follow-up of the war on the top, so the specifications were quite high. 5 elders gathered together and an army commander Kong was added. As for the Celestial Dragons, no one was sent over, after all. Marine is a subsidiary organization under the direct jurisdiction of 5 elders. 5 elders, Marshal Sora. After Sengoku and Akainu saw 5 elders and Sora, they both shouted, but their tone was not respectful. After all, both of them were standing on the top of the ocean, and 5 elders was only higher in status than the 2 of them. If you really fight, you don't know what the result will be, so Akainu and the others don't need to be as respectful as others treat 5 elders. 5 elders didn't care about the attitude of the 2 of them. They just said emptily, Sengoku, Sakazuki, you did a very good job this time. Not only did you hate Whitebeard and Firefist, but you also almost wiped out the Whitebeard pirates, which is very good. The Sengoku this time really made the top of the world government very satisfied. This is definitely the biggest victory for Marine against the 4 emperors after the appearance of the pirate 4 emperors. The thief side received an extremely heavy blow, which is naturally a great result for the world government. The old bald star with a knife said, but there is one thing we don't understand. You obviously had the ability to leave red hair pirates. Why didn't you retreat? Sengoku, this is your order. Tell me why? In an instant, 5 elders' eyes were fixed on Sengoku, waiting for Sengoku to give them a satisfactory answer. Sengoku replied calmly, at that time we did still have combat power, but most of the soldiers were exhausted. If you forcefully leave the red hair pirates behind, you will inevitably suffer a great loss, and you may not be able to leave the red hair pirates. So I finally decided to give up the fight and let red hair pirates leave. This is my responsibility. Humph. The old star in a black suit and white curly hair coldly snorted. It's not that you can afford to take the responsibility. This big victory is indeed a great achievement for you, but the handling after the war made us very dissatisfied. Sengoku, it's your negligence as Marshal Marine. There is also Garp. We haven't said anything about Garp's handling. It is your Marine Marshal's responsibility, and we will not force it, but even if you have a good relationship, you must not be soft when you should be punished. At this time, another old star with a red suit and blonde hair also said, there is also Impel down. We heard that there were 2 escapes there. The entire Impel Down was in chaos, and countless pirates escaped. After Impel Down, you are also responsible for this matter. Before coming here, Sengoku was mentally prepared, so even if 5 elders reprimanded him face to face, he would only have an ugly face, and he did not make a rebuttal, and there is no way to rebut it, whether it's letting go of red hair pirates or taking care of Garp. Take it lightly, this is all true. He knew very well that he had won this top battle. Otherwise, 5 elders would not be so polite to him, and I'm afraid he would immediately be placed in the position of his marshal, and there would even be subsequent punishments. Seeing 5 elders aiming at Sengoku, Sora couldn't help but said, 5 elders, Sengoku did not handle certain things properly, but it did not affect the overall situation. We won a big victory in this war. Not only did Whitebeard be killed, but also the blood of One Piece King Roger was beheaded. This was a major victory. The old star, dressed in a dark blue suit, with long white hair and a white beard, said, "It is precisely because this is a major victory that we did not hold him accountable. Otherwise, he would not be able to stand safely here." Sengoku said with a serious face, "I will take all responsibilities, so I decided to resign as Marshal Marine." Resign as Marshal Marine. Sengoku's words surprised both 5 elders and Sora. Although 5 elders did have such thoughts and plans, they were put forward by Sengoku himself, and the meaning was different. As soon as these words came out, the faces of the few people present changed. 5 elders and Sora were very surprised, while Akainu's faces were pale. Now Akainu is not in harmony with Sengoku, which is very beneficial to balance the forces within Marine, but 5 elders is more at ease. So, my opinion is that Kuzan is enough to be Marine Admiral, but it is not yet time to be Marine Marshal. 5 elders are all very strange. Originally they thought Sengoku would recommend Kizaru. After all, Kizaru's qualifications are much older than Aokiji, and he is also a member of Sengoku, but they didn't expect Sengoku to mention Aokiji without mentioning Kizaru. Well, it's not the time to talk about this. Sengoku, you report to us the specific process and losses of this war. The old star in black suit and white curly hair interrupted. When asked by 5 elders, Akainu didn't panic either, and replied calmly, "Kuzan is indeed a very talented person. If it's a peaceful time, let him become Marine's Marshal and command Marine. That's a problem. Nothing." Sengoku now wants Aokiji to take over as Marshal Marine, which means that in the next few decades, if nothing else, Master Marine, a force of Sengoku, is not a good thing for him. The old bald star with a knife said solemnly, "The red hair is indeed too arrogant. It is a loss to not get rid of him this time." The old star with white curly hair suddenly asked Akainu, "Sakazuki, Sengoku proposed that Kuzan become Marshal Marine. What do you think of this?" Kuzan. All the previous words are just foreshadowing. The last sentence was the original intention of Akainu. After Sengoku heard the last sentence, his face was even more ugly, because this sentence was what he said to Akainu not long ago, but now it is Akainu was used as a killer against Aokiji becoming a marshal. Sengoku was obviously well prepared. He said, "Marine Admiral Kuzan has a calm temperament, a veteran, and prestigious among Marine. I recommend Kuzan to take over as Marine Marshal." 5 elders and Sora glanced at Sengoku and Akainu. Of course, they knew the contradiction between the two people very well, but they never wanted to stop it, because this is what they like to see, a military organization as big as Marine. If it is up and down Ishin, it will make them jealous and uneasy. Akainu was very modest this time and said, "This is what I should do, but unfortunately I didn't leave the red hair. If it can get rid of the red hair, then the situation will be different now." At this point, I think Kuzan is more indecisive. I admit that he has the determination to protect the people, but whether he has the faith and confidence to fight the pirate 4 emperors or not, I can't guarantee. And if the 4 emperors cannot be eliminated, then the power of the pirates will never perish. Marshal Sengoku said that Kuzan's methods are prudent, but to put it another way, it can also be said that it is not firm enough. I think treating the pirates, we should adopt a fierce attitude. Only in this way can we show the power of Marine, maintain the face of the world government, and make it more convenient for the world government to rule the sea. 5 elders was also very satisfied with what Akainu did. It was the honor of the world government to destroy Whitebeard. 5 elders is non-committal, and Sora is also dissatisfied. Although he has not asked about Marine's affairs for many years, he still knows the internal situation of Marine very well. He knows why Sengoku recommends Aokiji because Aokiji is a member of Sengoku. It's not an exaggeration to be Sengoku's successor to justice. Sengoku replied, 5 elders, Kuzan is the youngest of the 3 Marine Admiral, but he is more suitable for Marine justice. Let him become Marine Marshal, it will definitely improve Marine's morale, and Kuzan talent penultimate, he will do everything, and he is very stable in dealing with others. He is the most suitable candidate. Sora saw that 5 elders did not speak, but changed the subject very keenly. He said to Akainu, "Sakazuki, this victory in the war, your contribution is the greatest, very good, and I did not live up to my expectations of you. Yes, Sakazuki, you did a good job this time. It didn't disappoint us, and it also contributed to the prestige of the world government." Sure enough, Akainu continued, but the situation on the sea is not peaceful at all, and the pirates are raging. New World has a pirate overlord who dominates the New World, completely ignoring our marine and world government. These reactionary pirate forces must be treated with thunder's means, and must not be merciless. The five elders looked at each other. Their previous idea was to let Sengoku step down as Marshal Marine, but now Sengoku took the initiative, and they won't be able to use it if they are prepared. It's just that Sengoku has been Marshal Marine for 20 years after all. There is no shortage, prestige is enough, even they cannot easily decide whether Sengoku will go or stay. Suddenly, everyone's eyes turned to Akainu, but Sengoku had an unsightly face, and asked Akainu, "Is it necessary to say the result?" I would definitely not agree, but he also understood the meaning of five elders, so he didn't speak. The corner of Sengoku's eyes jumped, and Sora just changed the subject, but Akainu turned back in a blink of an eye. This was blocking him. Sengoku calmed down for a while, and then began to report the specific situation of the war, reporting for a full hour. As for the five elders, they don't really care who takes over as Marshal Marine. After all, Marine is a military organization belonging to the world government. Anyone who takes over as Marshal Marine must be controlled by them. It's just that, but Sengoku came up to recommend Aokiji. Of course, they couldn't agree with them. They asked Sengoku only because Sengoku is now Marine Marshal and knows the Marine situation best, but he only has the right to propose to the next Marshal Marine. The final decision is in their hands. Is Kuzan younger? Sengoku said. Yes, I have an unshirkable responsibility in this war. The victory of the war is entirely dependent on everyone's bloody struggle. I must give everyone a satisfactory explanation and resign from the position of Marshal Marine. It is myself. The decision was made after thinking about it for a long time. Akainu was mentioned by him. It is considered his own. In his opinion, Akainu may have shortcomings of one kind or another, but he has basically never let him down. Especially in this battle to the top, Akainu's performance is even more amazing. If it were not for Akainu's strength, I am afraid that Marine would not be so easy to destroy the Whitebeard pirates, and it is hard to say whether it can even kill Whitebeard. Sengoku, since you want to step down as Marshal Marine, you must be recommended by a suitable candidate. After all, Marine, as the largest military organization in the sea, cannot be guarded by Marshal Marine. After everything was reported, Sengoku once again mentioned his resignation as Marshal Marine, and this time, five elders did not refuse. When he said this, he paused. Five elders, Sora and Sengoku were surprised when they heard what Akainu said, but it was only for a moment. They all knew that Akainu hadn't finished. Then, who do you think is more suitable to take over as Marshal Marine? The old star in a red suit and blonde hair asked Akainu. Akainu replied without hesitation, "If you are willing to believe me, five elders, I want to be Marine Marshal." As soon as this remark came out, the whole hall fell into silence, and the rest of the people looked at Akainu in surprise. They thought of this possibility, but they didn't expect that Akainu was not humble at all, so he immediately recommended himself. Sakazuki, you are quite confident. Why do you think that you are qualified to succeed Marshal Marine? After all, the position of Marshal is different from Admiral. You are responsible for the Marine headquarters and maintain the tranquility of the entire sea. Five elders have different expressions, but they have also known Akainu, so they recovered after being surprised and asked Akainu instead. Akainu replied affirmatively. I think I can do it. It's a good thing to have confidence, but some things can't be done with confidence. Five elders, I still think Kuzan is more suitable to become the new Marine Marshal. My reason is the same as before. Sakazuki has the ability, but he lacks the body. For the benevolence of the commander, he acted too extreme and left no room for it. I don't think he can lead the entire Marine headquarters. Sengoku had long anticipated that Akainu would have such ambitions. In order to prevent Akainu from succeeding, he began to count down Akainu's disadvantages in front of five elders, and did not leave Akainu with any affection at all. Shouldn't appear on Sengoku, after all, he is the chief of Akainu. Akainu said, That's really interesting. If you don't take good care of me, I am not qualified to be Marshal Marine? A soldier who doesn't know how to respect the commander, I don't think he can be an excellent commander. Up to now, in order to be able to build momentum for Aokiji, Sengoku also unscrupulously began to criticize Akainu. He is also an ordinary person. For the sake of profit, it is nothing to criticize Akainu. I don't know what a good commander is like, but I think that as a Marine, at least you can't let the pirates go, especially when you can. Marine is going to fight the pirates, but you have to do what you can. Reckless action is a reckless behavior. Akainu didn't want to quarrel with Sengoku, but Sengoku was ready to give up the position of Marine Marshal. He had no scruples at all. He just wanted to not let Akainu succeed, so he stared at Akainu, so that he had no choice but to fight back. Enough. 5 elders looked at Sengoku and Akainu with great interest. As the 2 most prestigious people in Marine, they would actually behave like a man of the market. This makes 5 elders, whom he has not encountered for many years, all surprised. But Kong roared furiously. Sengoku was promoted by him, and Akainu was promoted by him. Even if he is more inclined to Akainu now, he doesn't want the 2 of them to quarrel here. Look at what you look like. After angrily, he said to 5 elders, 5 elders, I think the position of Marine Marshal is still up to you to decide. After all, 5 elders is the face-to-face power of the world government. If they are appointed by them, neither Sengoku nor Akainu can refute it. In fact, since the establishment of Marine for so many years, the competition for Marshal Marine has not been fierce, because before the previous Marshal abdicated, he would basically choose the best Marine Admiral to train, and then succeed him after a few years. Marine went through the transition period of changing the leader steadily. But Sengoku has a problem this year. Among the 3 Marine Admirals today, the most prestigious and outstanding is undoubtedly Admiral Akainu, but the problem is that Akainu is not valued by Sengoku at all, let alone focused on training. Instead, it's suppressed. It's fine if it keeps going like this. After a few years, Aokiji will gradually come to power, and it will be natural to succeed Marshal Marine, but the problem is that Sengoku had to abdicate to the virtuous, but Aokiji has the prestige. Inadequate, and Akainu has made amazing contributions in the war, and its prestige is much higher than that of Aokiji. At this critical moment, contradictions arise. Sengoku is unwilling to back down, and Akainu is unwilling to back down. The final decision depends on 5 elders. 5 elders is made up of 5 people. Since it is 5 people, it is naturally impossible for everyone to have the same opinions. They started to communicate with their eyes, but they were unable to make a decision. Some preferred Aokiji recommended by Sengoku, and some preferred Aokiji recommended by Sengoku. Akainu, there is no consensus at all. Finally, the old star with white straight hair and long beard said, whether it is Sakazuki or Kuzan, they are eligible to compete for the position of Marine Marshal, but we still need to discuss how to decide in the end, and we also need to consult. The opinion of the top naval headquarters cannot be decided in a short while. Immediately afterwards, he said a lot of words, the meaning is very clear, we need to discuss, you guys wait. For such a result, Akainu had already guessed that 5 elders is indeed very powerful, but Marshal Marine is a very important position. Even if they are, it is impossible for them to make a decision in one word. They must ask the big boss behind the scenes. When Sengoku and Akainu returned to naval headquarters, the atmosphere of the entire naval headquarters changed drastically. Because the news had spread, Sengoku was retiring from the position of Marshal and recommended Admiral Aokiji, while Akainu recommended himself to compete with Aokiji for Marshal Marine. A generation of emperor and courtier, so after the news that Akainu and Aokiji were fighting for Marshal Marine, the naval headquarters started to stand up from the top to the common soldiers. Some support Aokiji and some support Akainu. Over the years, Aokiji has gotten many opportunities because of Sengoku's support. However, because of his character, there are not many people who are loyal to him. However, Sengoku helps him build momentum, and there are many people in Marine who support him today. But compared with Akainu, the gap is very big. Akainu became admiral many years earlier than Aokiji. Not only is the youngest Marine admiral, but he also has great military exploits and more powerful methods. In addition to the high-level hawks, there are also many high-level officials who are inclined to him. As for the ordinary soldiers below, they completely crush Aokiji. Judging from the support of both sides, the 2 are not above the same level at all. If it were not for Sengoku's support, Aokiji would not be eligible to compete with Akainu. The world government's delay in issuing orders has also caused the battle between naval headquarters to become more and more serious, and even affected the reconstruction of the naval headquarters base. In the end, even Kizaru, who wanted to help each other, was involved and didn't know it happened. What? He actually started to support Aokiji, which caused an uproar in naval headquarters. The noise of naval headquarters has aroused great attention from the world government. Now, Marine's victory over the Whitebeard pirates is just the time when it became famous. But the position of a Marine Marshal could not cause mutiny. So 5 elders immediately held a meeting and dedicated it. Asked the big boss behind them, and finally made a decision. The decision of the world government was weird. They established Akainu as Marine Marshal, but reserved a chance for others. Generals of naval headquarters Vice Admiral and above, if there is any objection, can challenge Akainu once, but the chance is only once. If Akainu wins, he will naturally become the new Marine Marshal. If he loses, the person who defeats him will become Marine Marshal. This decision seemed to many people to be very absurd, but after another thought, I understood what it meant. When Akainu learned about this decision of the world government, he sneered. 5 elders, or the big boss behind them, should be inclined to himself, but he also wanted to beat him by doing so that he could understand that they could treat him. Mentioning as Martial Marine can also pull him off the position of Martial Marine. The Celestial Dragon's clan, it's a wishful thinking. Although I am very upset with this decision, for now, this is the best choice. It satisfies Akainu and gives Sengoku an explanation. Don't you say that Aokiji is more suitable for Marine Marshal's position? Yes, you can let him go and compete with Akainu. Akainu thought that Aokiji would come to him soon, but he didn't expect to wait a full day for Aokiji to come to him. Are you really going to fight me? Akainu looked at Aokiji in front of him and asked. Aokiji asked faintly, if you were me, what would you do? Understood. Akainu nodded. He understood what Aokiji meant. The two of them were people from different worlds and insisted on different justice. Aokiji didn't want to be under him, and he did the same, so this battle is imperative. It's different from the anime that the two played for 10 days and 10 nights. This time, Akainu and Aokiji fought for a short time. Akainu can't say that they defeated Aokiji by crushing, but they also defeated Aokiji by an absolute advantage. Human fighting time was longer than the original fight between Akainu and Whitebeard, fighting for nearly 10 hours. Because the battle between the two of them was not equal, but Akainu won with a big advantage, so the last two of them did not fight and lose both. Aokiji was only seriously injured, but not as disabled as the comics. You lose. After the defeat of Aokiji, Akainu became a veritable new Marine Marshal. After more than 2 decades, he finally stood at the top of the sea. Marine Marshal, perhaps even worse than the 5 elders and others at the highest level of the world government, but this is already the highest position he can be promoted to, and it has also met Akainu's psychological expectations. It seems that the one who knows me best is you. Aokiji laughed at himself. This incident made Shanks a little relieved. At least in the pirate power, he didn't have to worry about the rise of a more ambitious Blackbeard. Akainu asked, how is it? Have you made a decision? After speaking, Akainu turned around and left here. This is an uninhabited island far away from Marineford. Their battle site was not in Punk Hazard this time, because they felt that the battle did not take too long, so they chose an uninhabited island. The two fight for a longer time, not because Aokiji is stronger than Whitebeard, but because Akainu and Aokiji's devil fruit, lava fruit and frozen fruit can be said to be mutually reinforcing. Magma can melt ice and ice. The extremely cold air can also eliminate the scorching heat of magma. Without the scorching hot magma, the lethality is naturally not enough to threaten Aokiji. Akainu asked, are you going to betray Marine? Akainu continued, you know that you are not my opponent, but you still shot, not because you are stupid, but because of your persistence. Although you and I have different understandings of justice, I do not agree with your justice, but I agree with your strength and persistence, so I will not kill you. Since the moment Blackbeard obtained dark fruit and betrayed the Whitebeard pirates, Shanks has been very jealous, and even went to the Whitebeard pirates for this, and personally negotiated with Whitebeard, telling Ace not to touch Blackbeard. Since then, no one has objected to Akainu. Akainu's succession went smoothly, and the major change was announced in the news media as quickly as possible. No one knows what kind of mentality he is fighting with Akainu. He has foreseen the result before he comes. He knows that he has no chance of winning a point, so he has already thought about it, or he will be Akainu in the battle. To kill, or to leave Marine after the defeat, because he can't work under Akainu, who is completely different from his own justice. Aokiji looked at him and said, if you don't kill me, you will regret it. The only thing to be thankful for is that the guy Blackbeard was planted in Marineford. I didn't expect that with the gloominess of that guy, he would eventually be planted in his own calculations. His biggest failure was to miscalculate Akainu. Akainu has become the new Marine Marshal, and he will definitely deal the most cruel blow to the pirates. It is much more intense than during the Sengoku period. This person is too dangerous. Sure enough, it was Akainu who became Marine's new marshal. Aokiji said solemnly, I think you'd better kill me. Akainu stood, looking condescendingly at Aokiji, who fell on the ground, and said lightly. In fact, when the red-haired Shanks is in this state, there are not many people who can make him jealous. The new Marshal of Naval Headquarters, Akainu, is definitely in the forefront, especially during the Top War. After he fought with Akainu, he went deeper. I have realized the horror of Akainu at a level, even if it is him, I am afraid that he will not be Akainu's opponent at present. It's just that he has never told anyone before. Why would Akainu know? Akainu asked, if it was you, what would you do? You kill me. Aokiji closed his eyes and said. Whitebeard did not listen to his persuasion at the time, So it finally led to the top war and the fiasco of the Whitebeard pirates. It turned out that he thought it would be the Blackbeard fisherman's profit. After all, this time it was Blackbeard's calculation. In the end, Akainu alone broke the plan. Not only did he fail to get what he wanted, but even the pirate group he carefully prepared was destroyed. Even he was trapped in naval headquarters, and he didn't know his life or death. New World, Shanks, who had just held the funeral for Whitebeard and Ace, saw the news on the news, and his face became very solemn. The reason why Akainu let go of Aokiji is because Aokiji is not bad in nature. Unlike the pirates, he can be cruel to the pirates, but Aokiji is a colleague for many years, he can't do it, and the Blackbeard Pirates group it doesn't exist anymore. Even if Aokiji betrayed Marine, he won't join the Blackbeard Pirates again, so there is no need to worry about it. But the final result surprised him. Blackbeard didn't laugh to the end. Everything was done according to Blackbeard's calculations, but he didn't know the horror of Akainu. This is not what he pretended. He knew that Aokiji's idea was because he had watched One Piece anime, but he didn't lie in the following words, because he did think so. He has been suppressed by Sengoku for more than 10 years. If another Sengoku appears, he can't guarantee that he can stand it, even if it is to betray Marine at that time. Akainu said, "If I said that if I didn't kill you, I would never break my promise. I just hope you don't let me down." Akainu said, "Don't be surprised. I don't have the ability to see through other people's minds. The reason why I guess is because I think so too. If I lose in your hands, I would never want to be under your hands. It is also a small island, so even if they only fought for one day, they still almost collapsed the entire island. The entire island was full of magma and icebergs, and it became a veritable ice and fire island." Aokiji's pupils shrank suddenly and looked at Akainu incredible. He didn't understand why Akainu guessed what he thought. Aokiji opened his eyes in amazement. What Akainu said was what he said before the battle, but he didn't answer. He didn't know the answer, because he knew that he was absolutely impossible to beat Akainu. Marineford, Naval Headquarters. Since Akainu defeated Aokiji, naturally no one opposed him anymore, so he succeeded very smoothly and became the new Marine Marshal. Since then, Marine belongs to the end of the era of Sengoku and ushered in the era of Akainu. It was also after the defeat of Aokiji that all the people who originally supported Aokiji died down. They did not dare to jump out against Akainu, allowing Akainu to take over the power of Marine very smoothly. Even if there were some diehards, Akainu did not care. Because of the general trend, those people can't make any impact. Kizaru replied with a lazy look. "I don't care, you can do whatever you want. Anyway, I think it lacks consideration. At the same time, he has just succeeded to the post of Marine Marshal. If he excludes dissidents at this time and vigorously fights against other factions, it will also cause civil unrest in naval headquarters. Now is the time when naval headquarters is rebuilt, and there must be no internal problems again, so he also closed one eye to those people." Knowing Kizaru's personality, Akainu glanced at him lightly, and then asked Suru, "Senior Suru, what do you think?" Because this meeting was the first high-level meeting after Akainu succeeded the Marshal, it was of great significance. So basically all the top executives of naval headquarters attended, and only a handful of people were absent due to special reasons. Because the naval headquarters base suffered heavy losses in the war, it would take a long time to rebuild it, and because of the need to increase the intensity of combating pirates, I decided to swap the naval headquarters base with the G1 branch base of New World. The last important figure is Garp. He also did not participate in this meeting. During the top war, he took a shot at Akainu for protecting the pirate Straw Hat Boy, which caused him to receive a lot of criticism in Marine. Regarding what Akainu said, everyone secretly nodded their heads. The victory of the war represented Marine suppressed the pirates. The next step must be to strike a deeper blow against the pirates, especially the new Marine Marshal or a powerful faction like Akainu. It is everyone's expectation to increase the intensity of catching pirates. Originally, such behavior must be severely punished, but when Sengoku was in power, Garp had already been punished and he was transferred to the East Blue Marine branch base, so naturally he was not eligible to participate in the meeting, but the same, also avoiding Garp from being punished in other eyes. However, some people with great influence did not attend, such as Marine Marshal Sengoku, who had just abdicated. Although Sengoku had abdicated at this time, he still had prestige in Marine. He did not participate in this meeting. His dissatisfaction also meant to avoid suspicion, but because the contradiction between the two of them had already been put on the surface, the others did not care too much. But Akainu's next sentence made them all nervous. Soon after succeeding Marine Marshal, Akainu held the first high-level meeting, in which all the top executives from Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral and above participated in this meeting. It can't be said that this is a special period for combating pirates, and it is okay to use special methods in a special period. After everyone came together, Akainu, who was sitting in the first place, spoke slowly. To gather everyone here today, there are several important announcements. No one here showed any surprises. The new officials took office with 3 fires. They all thought that Akainu was going to expand their power, so they were preparing to carry out a series of reforms to Marine. But this is what every new Marine Marshal will go after he succeeds. Of course, they will not have any opinions about what they do. The expressions of the people present suddenly changed. The first person who spoke was Zephyr of Marine's older generation. He said, "The naval headquarters base has been established for hundreds of years and has not changed. It moved rashly and moved to the most chaotic new world. Is it too anxious to do this?" Akainu was not angry when he saw someone objecting, and asked the only Marine Admiral Kizaru, Perusalino, "What do you think?" They were actually right. After Akainu succeeded to the throne, he did not think about excluding dissidents and eliminating those who had opposed him, because he felt unnecessary. As long as these people sincerely serve Marine and perform justice in the future, he will not make the villain means. She crossed her fingers and leaned on the round table and said, "After the war, Marineford suffered severe damage. Even if it can be rebuilt, it will take a certain amount of time. The base below may have been damaged to a certain extent, so if you move it, not necessarily, but whether you need to migrate to New World, it depends on what you think." Everyone expressed their opinions, some agreed and some opposed, and it was impossible to reach a unified opinion. Yes, how can the headquarter base be moved randomly? Akainu sits at the chief position of the round table. Below are Admiral Kizaru, Marine Staff Officer Vice Admiral, Zephyr and others, and Vice Admiral Doberman, Huashaoshan, etc., a total of 26 people. Perhaps because of being the Marine Marshal, the Marine executives present clearly felt that Akainu's aura became stronger. In the Sengoku era, Akainu was suppressed, so he was restrained, but now it's different. He has become as the leader of Marine, his aura and aura have naturally undergone earth-shaking changes. Akainu opened the mouth and said, "First thing, Marine's duty is to maintain the peace of the sea, but nowadays pirates are raging and doing evil, especially the pirates headed by the New World Pirate 4 Emperors. Kill the innocent and do anything wrong. So in order to curb the development of pirate power, I decided to strike the pirates the most severely, increase the force of arrest and punishment of pirates, so that all pirates can see the determination of our Marine. I agree with Marshal Sakazuki's decision. As long as the pirates of New World are eliminated, what kind of waves can the pirates of the first half and all over the world make?" Crane is Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral and Staff Officer. He has a very high status in Marine and he is also a wise man. In addition to Sengoku, another Marine Admiral Aokiji did not appear. To be precise, after losing the battle with Akainu for Marine Marshal, Aokiji never returned to Naval Headquarters. No one knows where he went, so naturally, can't reach him. Although we eliminated Whitebeard, one of the 4 emperors in this war, there are still 3 other emperors. Even in the near future, a new pirate emperor may appear to replace the pirate Whitebeard. If the headquarters is moved, then the control over the first half and the 4 seas will be weakened, so the gains outweigh the losses. Many vice admiral in this room originally supported Sengoku and Aokiji, but after Akainu took the throne, they immediately set their positions. Once the emperor and the courtiers, they can still distinguish the situation. Besides, anyway, they are all right. In Marine, whoever becomes a marshal is the same. The left and right are just different levels of attention. Anyway, Akainu won't be against them anyway. These are the senior executives above Vice Admiral who are still in Naval Headquarters. As for the tall giant Vice Admiral, they are not involved. They mainly represent Marine's combat power and basically do not participate in high-level meetings. Akainu saw that the Crane Vice Admiral had no objection, and he was relieved. He just became the Marine Marshal, and what he feared most was that the people below would unite against him, but Kizaru was the only one. He was most worried about Vice Admiral. The Marine Big Three in the Sengoku era, Sengoku, Garp, and Crane. Although Garp and Crane's military ranks are not as good as Admiral, they have no lower voice in Marine. Now Sengoku and Garp are not there. If Crane opposes him, he was really embarrassed. Fortunately, Crane has a clear distinction between public and private. She knows that both Sengoku and Garp have become like this because of Akainu, but she still won't embarrass Akainu because of her prestige for Marine. It can be said that this female Marine is Marine. One of the most respected people. Akainu said to Zephyr, "Teacher Zephyr, the New World G1 branch base is not much worse than here. Moving the headquarters base will not only reduce the reconstruction time, but also make it easier to target the New World pirates." Zephyr said. Although the old man didn't ask about these things, he also knows that the pirates of New World are not comparable to the pirates here. We Marine wants to enter the New World on a large scale, and I am afraid it will attract hostility from the pirates. Marine Vice Admiral Doberman also spoke at this time. Of course, he supported Akainu and said, "I don't think this is a problem. If it had been before, this might happen, But now, New World has been due to the death of Whitebeard. It became very chaotic. Except for the red hair, the other pirates were all staring at Whitebeard's site. The pirates were cleaning the site and didn't have time to take care of our marine affairs. The ghost spider who has been transferred to the naval headquarters base, although his qualifications are not as good as others, but as Akainu's deputy, he also has a say. We have just defeated the Whitebeard pirates, and morale is high. Entering the New World at this time, the pirates must avoid us. Even the remaining 3 pirates, they will never act rashly. Immediately there were several people who agreed with this decision. Those who were against it before stopped talking. They all saw Akainu's determination. Although they did not want to leave Marineford, who had been there for many years, they were more powerful than their power. Which is more important, they can still make the right choice. Zephyr is not against Akainu. He just expressed his opinion. Now that everyone agrees, he no longer opposes it. He just said, since you have decided, then do as you said, but this matter is not trivial. We must do all the aftermath work. Yeah. Akainu nodded. This matter is so settled, naval headquarters going to the New World is a foregone conclusion, so Akainu will talk about another thing next. The second thing is, this time the top war, we Marines suffered heavy losses. We had to go up to Marine generals and down to ordinary soldiers, so we must replenish our troops in time. Marine generals are dispatched from various Marine branches and are in the world. At the beginning of conscription, anyone of normal background, no crime, and no connection with the pirates can be conscripted. Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked. The worldwide conscription is something that hasn't happened in a long time. Marine enlistment is a very important matter. Large-scale enlistment is only under certain circumstances. Usually it is small-scale enlistment, and the expropriation is for local personnel within Marines' control, and many of them are on duty. Relatives of soldiers. As for the worldwide conscription that Akainu talks about, the scale is too big, and not only ordinary soldiers are expropriated, but middle-level generals can also be recruited through the world. This allows many people to see the opportunity. Who has no relatives or friends of 3 or 2, it is usually difficult for them to be in position. Now this is a rare opportunity. So after Akainu said this, it was rare that no one spoke out against it. But what Akainu said next shocked them. They only heard Akainu say, this conscription is not only to recruit ordinary soldiers and generals, but also has a more important purpose, which is to select 2 new Marines. Admiral. What? Everyone except Akainu was shocked. What are you kidding me? Marine Admiral represents the highest combat power of Marine and is the most important position of naval headquarters. Marine Admiral has always been cultivated by Marine internally and has never heard of direct recruitment. How could the Admiral recruited by the world conscripts compare to what he cultivated? There is no comparability in terms of loyalty. Marshal Sakazuki, we Marine currently have 2 Admiral, Paluzalino Admiral and Kuzan Admiral. Even if we promote Admiral, there should be only 1. Why should we choose 2 Admiral? Marine Vice Admiral Huishaoshan couldn't help but ask. He has a good relationship with Aokiji, that's why he asked. Akainu said in a deep voice, Kuzan has not heard from so far. Obviously, he is not ready to come back again. Now is the critical period for our Marine. We can't keep vacating the Admiral position just because he is alone. He knows very well that as long as he is Marine Marshal, Aokiji does not expect to come back. It is impossible for him to keep vacating a place for Marine Admiral because of Aokiji. After all, Marine Admiral is to deter the peak of the sea. Vice Admiral Dalmisha also said at this time, it is too risky to recruit Marine Admiral through world conscription. It is better to elect from the Vice Admiral of the headquarters. Akainu said, I didn't say that I won't be elected from the Vice Admiral of the headquarters. I mean, recruiting from around the world naturally includes our naval headquarters, but in the end we must elect the strongest and most outstanding Admiral, otherwise it would be better to choose the best Admiral. Under Akainu's explanation, everyone also understood what he meant. Although people like Huishaoshan and others who had made friends with Aokiji were dissatisfied, their arms couldn't twist their thighs, and in the end they could only agree with Akainu's decision. These 2 things are by far the most important, but neither can be done in a day or 2, so this time the main decision is to decide how to implement it, and to discuss it later. After talking about these 2 things, Akainu entered the theme of the meeting and adjusted the generals and officials of the naval headquarters. When talking about this, all the people present became very serious, and those who belonged to the Akainu family showed excitement. They supported Akainu for so long, isn't it just for this moment? Now Akainu has finally become Marine Marshal, and it is Akainu's turn to give them back, which of course made them very excited and excited. Under the control of Akainu, the personnel transfers of the various departments of naval headquarters are still relatively large. People like Doberman and Ghost Spider have also obtained real power. Doberman is still leading the military investigation department, but compared with the past, when he got up, his power was much greater now, and the ghost spider was transferred to the headquarters under Akainu, and the others also received real power. The original Marine Marshal Sengoku was changed to Naval Headquarters Consultant by Akainu. His position was aloof, but he had no real power. He completely left the center of power of Naval Headquarters. Crane and Zephyr have not changed, and even Akainu has increased their power, which is somewhat unexpected. However, the rest of the Marine executives in the Sengoku series were more or less weakened, but they were still within their acceptance range, so after Akainu announced it, they did not object to it. Following Akainu's orders, the entire Naval Headquarters quickly started to operate. The new marshal took office. No one dared to stroke Akainu's beard at this time. All were strictly executed in accordance with his orders. Although Akainu gave the order, he could not decide to relocate the Naval Headquarters base alone. It also needs to be reported to the 5 elders of the world government. However, 5 elders has no objection to this decision and quickly agreed, and will Akainu called Marie Joys, and after Akainu expressed loyalty to the world government, they were completely relieved. In fact, the reason why Akainu is so eager to move the Naval Headquarters base to New World is that on the one hand, it is really preparing to target the 4 emperors of New World, and on the other hand, it wants to escape the constant supervision of the world government. After all, the current Marineford is very close to Marie Joys, and there is a giant hanging on his head. Naturally, he is bound to do things. After the headquarters is moved to New World, although it is still subject to the control of the world government, it is much better than it is now. As for another matter of world conscription, it must be placed after this matter. The entire Naval Headquarters is busy, and such a big movement of Naval Headquarters, of course, can't keep others from it. Soon all the major forces learned of Marines' actions, all of them thoughtful, but no one started to act. New World is going to be more chaotic now. The big figures of the major forces all sighed secretly in their hearts. Originally, the New World was so troubled by the event that Whitebeard died. Now Naval Headquarters is going to step in again, especially the current Marshal Marine is still very powerful. Akainu will naturally make New World more chaotic. Blackbeard, are you okay these days? In a temporary prison in Marineford. This is a place where prisoners are temporarily detained. Among them, Blackbeard, who was defeated during the war at the top, was locked here. In fact, because of Blackbeard's crimes, he should be locked and impelled down, but Akainu it's still useful to keep him, so I put him here. Thief, ha ha ha, it's pretty good to be alive. By the way, thank you very much, Marine's new marshal, Akainu. Even if he was locked up, Blackbeard still did not despair. He saw that his hands and feet were handcuffed with seastone shackles, and he was fixed on the wall of the cell, so that his range of motion was only 1 or 2 meters. His injuries he still hasn't recovered well. The whole person looks more decadent, but his eyes are exceptionally bright. It's just that although he is smiling, when he looks at Akainu, the hatred is hard to hide in his eyes. He has fallen to where he is now. It is all because of Akainu. Akainu not only caused the breakdown of the pirate group he carefully planned, but also killed his trusted subordinates. Now he is even more under control, his life and death are completely in the hands of the other party, and now he is the fish on the chopping board. Akainu looked at Blackbeard and said, Blackbeard, I saved your life and kept you alive. To live is hope. So, should you give me back? Blackbeard said, that's the truth, but I don't know you, Marshal Marine. What do you need me for? He is very smart. Knowing that Akainu didn't kill him and keeping him here, he must have thoughts about him, but he doesn't know what Akainu has for him. Akainu said, it's very simple. I only have one purpose. I know your purpose for calculating Whitebeard. You want to seize the ability of his shock fruit. What I want from you is how you can make yourself take 2 kinds of devil fruit, without conflict. Blackbeard's pupils shrank. He didn't expect Akainu to know such a secret thing. You know, he only told a few of his subordinates. How did Akainu know? Blackbeard, you don't have to try to lie to me, because it makes no sense at all. Akainu warned. Blackbeard laughed and said, the thief, ha ha ha, I didn't expect you to know about it. You're right. I really want to seize the power of shock fruit, but only I can use this method. Even if I tell you, you can't use it. Actually, I want to lie to you. If you take the second devil fruit, it will be very beneficial to me. But I know that people like you, without absolute certainty, absolutely will not try easily. Akainu said, I know you should use your dark fruit ability to extract the ability of other devil fruit, but how can you get the ability of the second devil fruit? Blackbeard said, now that I know your purpose, I can't say it even more, because if I say it, I really will die, and as long as I don't tell you, there is still the value of being alive. You said it too. There is hope in life. If that is the case, why should I say it? Very smart. Akainu nodded, not angry, but said faintly, but other people are not fools. Since you don't say it, I can only use other methods. As long as I don't say it, no matter what method you use, it's useless. Blackbeard said confidently. Akainu sneered. There are many people smarter than you in this world, and we Marine has such a person. After speaking, he immediately told Lucas, who was next to him, go and interrupt all of his limbs, then send it to Punk Hazard, give it to Vegapunk, and tell him what I have said, believing he will make the smartest choice. Vegapunk is Marine's #1 scientist, but he has a technological level that is 500 years ahead of the current world's wisdom. Handing Blackbeard to him, I believe that Vegapunk will be able to study his physical problems. Vegapunk is a scientist afraid of the world government. Although he works for the world government and Marine, he is subject to freedom restrictions. He is now Marine Marshal. As long as he promises certain benefits to the other party, I believe Vegapunk will definitely not refuse to work for him. The reason why he wants to get the secret of Blackbeard's body is also to see if he can get the ability of double fruits. After all, although his current strength can be said to be proud of the sea, there are too many big figures hidden in this world, especially world the government. He will have to confront the world government and celestial dragons in the future, so he must have a stronger power. For now, breaking Blackbeard's secrets is a very good choice. Although he still has a more mysterious system, it is really difficult to obtain the fear value. He used Ryujin Jaka Shikai for several years at the beginning, but after Ryujin Jaka, the system has never appeared. Even after he took Ryujin Jaka Shikai, there was only a higher level of Bankai, but the required fear value reached an astonishing 5 million points. It is precisely because of this that Akainu has gradually let go of his dependence on the system. In a battle to the top, he killed countless people before obtaining a fear value of more than 200,000, but it is 500 minutes away from Ryujin Jaka Bankai. 10,000. The difference is not even a star and a half. Now he has become the Marine Marshal. Compared to the previous admiral, he is much busier. Naturally, he can't have extra time to do scary or murderous things in order to obtain the fear value. Most of his remaining fear points were exchanged for observation hockey fruits, and his experience was increased by 200 meters. The rest was used for lottery draws, and the items drawn were still there in the past. Fortunately, the small items drawn are of great effect, especially the loyalty card, which is very good for him now. He has continuously used the loyalty card for many of his subordinates, and the effect is very good. There is no time to collect fear points, and no new products appear, so Akainu's demand for the system is no longer as strong as before. Instead, he now wants to develop other methods to improve his strength, such as Blackbeard. 2 kinds of devil fruit abilities. He now only possesses a kind of lava fruit, and he has become extremely powerful. If he gets another kind of powerful fruit, such as shock fruit, his strength will inevitably undergo earth-shaking changes. The reason why I chose to give Blackbeard to Vegapunk is because Vegapunk is a very powerful scientist. If anyone has the most hope to study the secrets of Blackbeard, the world must belong to Vegapunk. As for whether Vegapunk will agree or not, he is not worried at all. Scientists are lunatics. The reason why Vegapunk was arrested by the world government to serve the government was not because he conducted taboo research. Because his fight with Aokiji is not in Punk Hazard, the research base there will naturally not be lonely. It still belongs to Vegapunk's territory, and Akainu is also going to let Vegapunk stay there to continue research. Whether it is the pedigree factor studied by Vegapunk, the huge human experiment, or the experiment that can create an artificial devil fruit, they can all bring great benefits to Marine. Even a gloomy person like Blackbeard screamed after being interrupted. He stared at Akainu with resentment. If his eyes could kill people, Akainu might have been killed many times. Looking at Blackbeard, who was framed, Akainu said coldly, "Don't look at me like this. The winner is the winner. This is the end you deserve. If you tell me the answer sooner, you might end up happy." Blackbeard said fiercely, "You dream. As long as I don't die, you will never want to get my secret." Akainu disdainfully said, "You really value yourself. Without you, I just lost an opportunity to become stronger, so don't think too much of yourself. Blackbeard, in my eyes, you are a definite opportunity. Someone who doesn't." Indeed, he really didn't take Blackbeard too seriously. What kind of threat could a person who has been decommissioned pose to him? As for whether he can get Blackbeard's secret, to be honest, he doesn't have to do it either. Blackbeard was escorted away by Lucas in this way, and then secretly sent to Punk Hazard in New World and handed over to Vegapunk for research. In the next 2 months, the large-scale relocation of naval headquarters was finally completed. The New World Marine G1 branch base has now become the Naval Headquarters base, and the original Marineford base has become the G1 branch base. However, in terms of personnel, it has not been fully in place. It is just that a small number of people have arrived at the headquarters of New World first, and the rest need to be moved slowly. After all, many Marines are dragging their families, not a day or two. The migration was successful. As the Marshal of Naval Headquarters, Akainu was naturally the first to bring people to the new headquarters base, settled in his headquarters, and then began to command the soldiers under his command to reform. In addition, The mighty world conscription was also launched, perhaps because the victory of the war at the top has allowed the people of the world to gain confidence in Marine, so after the start of the world conscription, countless people are vying for it. Join Marine. In short, after Akainu succeeded Marshal Marine, everything went very smoothly. Of course, Akainu also knew that this was not entirely his credit, but more because of the overall victory of the top war. In this situation of victory, the defects behind can also be covered up. Sakazuki Admiral, Princess Otahime of the Fishmen Island came to see you. Akainu is staying in the office to deal with government affairs. In the 2 months of his career as a marshal, he feels that the biggest change is that he is too unfree. He has inexhaustible affairs every day. He spends almost half of the day in the office. In this case, there is still time to collect the fear value. However, there is no other way. After all, he has only become a marshal. If he does not take the lead in doing things, he will inevitably fail. As long as he is familiar with it for a period of time, he can allocate these matters to the headquarters. When the ghost spider waits on the head, he can be relatively relaxed. At this time, the soldiers guarding outside suddenly walked in and told him. What they said made him stunned. How could Princess Otahime of the Fishmen Island come to see him at this time? In the original pirate Time and Space, Princess Otahime should have been assassinated long ago, but because Akainu established the marine branch next to the Fishmen Island, she accidentally saved Princess Otahime and saved Princess Otahime life, and also caught the assassin who assassinated Princess Otahime, avoiding the possible riots in the Fishmen Island. I have to say that Princess Otahime is indeed a very attractive person. As a woman, her prestige in the Fishmen Island is much stronger than that of King Neptune. Over the years, under her leadership, the fishmen, the Murlocs of the island, get along well with humans, and some Murlocs have even joined the marine branch of the Fishmen Island and become marine soldiers. In short, the current situation of the Fishmen Island is very good, at least countless times better than the original Time and Space. However, the calm of all this has caused great problems with the defeat of the Whitebeard pirates in the top war. The Fishmen Island was originally the territory covered by the New World Whitebeard pirates. Whitebeard died. Even the Fishmen Island, there is also the marine branch around. The general pirate forces dare not have ideas, but it does not include the 4 emperors of the New World pirates. As an ally of Marine, Akainu naturally wouldn't refuse Princess Otahime's request. He asked his soldiers to take Princess Otahime to the reception room, and then set off on his own. The reason why I didn't meet with Princess Otahime in the office was because his office had a lot of confidential documents about Marine, which would normally not allow ordinary people to come in, let alone Princess Otahime, who has an extremely amazing observation hockey. His Royal Highness, I wonder if you were eager to see me this time. Is it the Fishmen Island? What happened? Because the base officer Ghost Spider of the Marine GX1 branch of the Fishmen Island was transferred to the headquarters by him, the current base officer is Marine Vice Admiral Dolo, but Akainu's current business is too busy, and he has not received the fishmen. What information about the island, so I don't know what Princess Otahime is doing here. Princess Otahime came to Naval Headquarters with Marine's warship this time, because Naval Headquarters is now in New World, and New World is now very chaotic. Even their Murlocs do not dare to be in New World casually. Walking can only rely on the power of Marine. After seeing Akainu, Princess Otahime bowed respectfully. Marshal Sakazuki, this time I have something to ask for. When Akainu was Marine Admiral in the past, her status was no lower than that of the Princess of the Fishmen Island, not to mention that Akainu is now the top big man in the sea, the Marine Marshal who leads Marine, and in terms of identity, Akainu is definitely better than her. The vast majority of kings in the world must be noble, and the power they control is not comparable to that of ordinary countries. The Murlocs, who have always belonged to the weak, even Princess Otahime, are inferior in front of Akainu, and naturally they will be very respectful. Being able to let His Royal Highness go to the headquarters in person, presumably something major happened? For Princess Otahime, Akainu still has a good impression, because he really admires this woman. If it is Neptune, he would not have such a good attitude. But when Princess Otahime said he had something to ask for, he had already started to think, because he had just become Marshal Marine and there were so many things that he didn't have time to pay attention to other things. Only now did he remember that in the original pirate Time and Space, after the death of Whitebeard, the Fishmen Island had no shelter. Later, he was bullied by the Big Mom Pirate Group, one of the 4 emperors of pirates, and was forced to join the camp of the Big Mom Pirate Group. Could it be that Princess Otahime was because of this? But Akainu is very puzzled. How fast is Big Mom doing it? You must know that although the Fishmen Island does not have the shelter of Whitebeard, there is still a marine branch base around the Fishmen Island. Charlotte Linlin cannot be unaware of this. Princess Otahime showed anxious expression and said, a major event happened. Not long ago, the Big Mom Pirate Group of New World suddenly came to the Fishmen Island, and brought Big Mom's orders to let we, the Fishmen Island, offer her enough desserts every year. On the other hand, they will also shelter us. Hearing this, Akainu was relieved, and it was exactly what he thought. He asked, the speed of the Big Mom pirate group is quite fast, but did you guys tell her that the Fishmen Island is controlled by our marine? Princess Otahime replied. I said, but they don't give face, and they still want to invade the Fishmen Island strongly. In fact, if they only need some desserts, we can accept it, but they need too much. We can't bear it at all. Akainu frowned at this. What does it mean to be acceptable if a certain amount is required? He doesn't know if this is the idea of all the fishmen, or the idea of Princess Otahime and Neptune, but he only knows one thing. The Fishmen Island's position is really too unsteady. As long as they can save themselves, they don't care who you follow. That is, their marine is very strong now, so the Fishmen Island will obey them, but if one day his Akainu is not good, I am afraid that the Murlocs of the Fishmen Island will not pay attention to him at all. At this moment, Akainu thought a lot and understood a truth. He admired Princess Otahime. It was correct, but he had to suppress the entire the Fishmen Island and let them live under their own power, better than them. It's good to betray at any time. In fact, if the Fishmen Island were to be led by someone like Jinbei, he would rest assured that Jinbei is not good enough, but he is a very loyal and repaying person. Otherwise, it would not be for Whitebeard. In spite of his own safety, he rushed into naval headquarters. After making the decision, Akainu immediately expressed embarrassment and said, His Royal Highness, I also know that the Fishmen Island is in critical condition now, but you should also understand that our marine situation is not very good. We just moved into New World. For us, the foundation has not yet settled. If we face the Four Emperors' Big Mom pirate group at this time, it will be very detrimental to us. He thought he had said clearly enough that Princess Otahime should understand what he meant, but who knew that Princess Otahime was dumbfounded and said, Isn't it Marine's duty to eradicate pirates? Hearing this, Akainu almost couldn't help it. Is this Princess Otahime really stupid or pretending to be stupid? His eyes flashed. Regardless of whether Princess Otahime is real or pretending, he wants Marine to help them retreat from the Big Mom pirates for free. There is no such good thing in the world. Now Naval Headquarters is undergoing a large-scale restructuring. Many big actions require a lot of funds to make the bottom line. Thinking of the wealth of the Fishmen Island, if such a good opportunity is not used, wouldn't it be a pity? Taking a deep breath, Akainu still looked embarrassed, and slowly said, His Royal Highness, you are right. It is indeed our Marine's duty to eradicate pirates, but New World's Four Emperors are different. We Marine has just entered the New World. If we act on the Big Mom pirate group now, it will inevitably cause the entire New World pirates to rebound, and the situation we will face will not be that simple at that time. Alas, Your Royal Highness, it's not that I don't want to help you, but the situation is forced. Marine is temporarily unable to make a big fight. We don't have enough support in terms of personnel and armaments. We are not fully prepared to face the Four Emperors of the New World pirates. It is not suitable for war at all. Akainu kept sighing and telling her own embarrassment, not because I was unwilling to help, but because I was really powerless. Having been in charge of the Fishmen Island for so many years, how could Princess Otahime be really stupid? She said that before, just wanting to test Akainu, but Akainu's current attitude has shown that it is actually an excuse that she can't help, but the benefits did not meet the requirements. So she said, Marshal Sakazuki, I also know that it is not easy to negotiate with the Big Mom pirate group. War is very likely to break out. You can rest assured, if you agree to help us, we are willing to show our sincerity. Give financial support to marine operations personnel. Now that Princess Otahime has spoken openly, Akainu no longer has any scruples, and directly said, We risked a full-scale battle with the Big Mom pirates to help you. This is not my decision alone. Yes, I have to ask for instructions from above, and a high-level meeting will be held, and finally. Princess Otahime hurriedly interrupted. We are willing to pay for all the losses and pay a certain amount of remuneration. Please see that for the sake of having a good time with us, you must help us. It is also promised to give financial support, and it is also to play the emotional card. Princess Otahime has no choice, because compared to Marine, Big Mom's request is more difficult to accept. The huge amount of desserts will consume the entire fishman. The island has a lot of manpower and material resources. And there is also the possibility of offending Marine for this. After all, they first joined Whitebeard before the establishment of the Marine branch, but now they have the Marine branch next to them, and they are forced to join the Big Mom pirates, based on their understanding of the new Marshal Akainu. Will definitely not let them off the Fishmen Island. After weighing the pros and cons, she and Neptune and other high-level leaders are willing to put hope on Marine. After all, Marine is a regular army, and they have been getting along well with Murlocs these years, and there is world behind them. The government is a big mountain, and they also count on Akainu to help them speak for the Murlocs at the World Summit. Therefore, not to mention that the financial resources given to Marine are less than those to be delivered to the Big Mom pirates. Even if it is more, they will choose the Marine side. After all, the pirates are unreliable, and it is as good as the Whitebeard pirates. Under Marine, who can guarantee the longevity of the Big Mom pirate group? Now Akainu didn't shirk anymore. The other party had already paid enough benefits. If he shirks anymore, it won't make sense. Well, I will deal with this matter immediately. I will send someone to the Fishman Island first. If the Big Mom pirate group comes again, I will negotiate with them. If it doesn't work, I will also take action. With the assurance of Akainu, Princess Otahime is obviously relieved. She and Akainu have known each other for more than 10 years. She knows that Akainu is not easy to get along with, but a person who keeps his promises, since he agreed, she will never repent. And one more thing. Princess Oheim asked hesitantly. It's about Jinbei. I heard that Jinbei was also involved in the battle when the war broke out. I want to know where he is now. Is it okay? As soon as he heard Jinbei's name, Akainu's brows frowned. Of course he knew where Jinbei was, because he personally ordered Jinbei's execution. Had it not been for Jinbei to sneak into the power room and open the door to justice, the Blackbeard pirates and Straw Hat pirates, and even Red Hair pirates, would probably not have entered the Marineford Naval Headquarters, although it did not cause much change in the end. Whitebeard the pirates were still defeated, but this kind of behavior could never be forgiven. Jinbei was captured by Lucas in the power room, and then impelled down by Akainu, which is Jinbei. If he was replaced by someone else, Akainu would kill him. So now that he hears Jinbei's name, he is naturally not very happy. Princess Otahime has been paying attention to Akainu. Naturally, she clearly saw Akainu's dissatisfaction. So she cautiously said, Marshal Sakazuki, I know Jinbei did something wrong, but can you look at the feelings of the past? Once with him? She also learned about Jinbei's participation in the Top War, but she didn't know what Jinbei did. After the Top War, Jinbei did not appear again, but she did not hear that Jinbei was killed. Jinbei was once Shichibukai. If he died in battle, there would definitely be news. But no news came out, which let her know that something major must have happened, so she took this opportunity to see if she could find out Jinbei's intelligence. Akainu said, Jinbei was indeed imprisoned by me. Because of him, there have been many changes in the war at the top, which caused a lot of trouble to our marine. I also took into account the friendship in the past, so I opened the door to him and did not execute it. But you want to save him, it's absolutely impossible. He didn't kill Jinbei, it didn't mean he was willing to let Jinbei go. After all, Jinbei's behavior at the time was really bad. Princess Otahime has an anxious look. Jinbei's importance to the Fishmen Island is self-evident. They are the only strong person in the Fishmen Island and the captain of the Pirates of the Sun. It can be described as the Fishmen Island. It's 100 responses. In the past, when Jinbei was in the Fishmen Island, it was also able to deter some pirates from the Fishmen Island, but there was no Jinbei in the past few months. The Fishmen Island has been invaded by pirates many times. If it weren't for the Marine branch, the consequences would be disastrous. She and Neptune are able to manage the Fishmen Island, but they don't have the ability to participate in the battle, so the Fishmen Island urgently needs Jinbei. This is also one of the reasons why Princess Otahime came to negotiate with Akainu in person, as long as they can be rescued. Jinbei, the Fishmen Island is also willing to pay a certain price. Thinking of this in her heart, Princess Otahime immediately said, Marshal Sakazuki, as long as you can spare Jinbei, we are willing to financially support the construction of the naval headquarters base. Akainu's heart moved. Although Marine is backed by the world government, it does not mean that there is no shortage of money. If there is no shortage of money, he will not bother to make money on the Murlocs. Most of the money of the world government as Celestial Dragons possesses a fixed annual military expenditure even for Marine. He now wants to expand Marine's force on a large scale. It is absolutely impossible to have no money. He has just made a fortune. Now Princess Otahime has given another chance. He is immediately considering gains and losses in his heart. Jinbei was locked and impelled down. It would be good if he could be exchanged for sufficient benefits. As for whether Jinbei would have a bad effect on Marine, there is no need to worry about Jinbei attacking the power room. Only a few high-level officials know about it, and outsiders don't even know it. Even if Jinbei is released, it won't have much impact. But it can be released, and how to release it, you still have to ask clearly, so he asked Princess Otahime, what Jinbei did is very bad. Even though first I'm Marshal Marine now, I don't mean to release people. Before he could finish his words, Princess Otahime suddenly said, 1 billion, we, the Fishmen Island, are willing to pay 1 billion Baileys to redeem Jinbei. Hiss. Akainu took a deep breath in her heart, watching Princess Otahime gritted her teeth, knowing how determined she was. 1 billion Baileys is not a small amount. Regardless of the rewards of hundreds of millions of Baileys offered by the big pirates in Pirate World, you think Baileys are worthless, and it is not the same thing at all. Most of the pirates' bounties represent the threat of a pirate. How many people have you seen in order to earn the bounty to find the bounty of hundreds of millions or even billions of pirates in trouble? Jinbei's strength, and his reputation, would be 4 to 5 billion Baileys when converted into a bounty, but now Princess Otahime is willing to use 1 billion Baileys to redeem someone. Akainu certainly has no reason to refuse. Okay, deal. Akainu's actions were still very fast. After making a decision, he immediately arranged for someone to go to Impel Down to mention someone. 3 days later, Jinbei was taken to the New World Naval Headquarters and met with Princess Otahime, who had been waiting for 3 days. In 3 days, the billion Baileys of the Fishmen Island have been delivered to Akainu. As for the financial support needed to negotiate with the Big Mom pirate group, this has not yet begun, so naturally there is no way to calculate it. Although the billion Baileys cannot be compared with Marine's annual military expenditures of tens to hundreds of billions, don't forget that Marine is spread all over the world. There are countless Marine soldiers around the world, and it is backed by the world government, the world's largest regime. The Fishmen Island is just a mere island kingdom, and 1 billion Baileys can be used to redeem a person at will. One can imagine the wealth of the Fishmen Island. It was still Marine's reception room, and in front of Akainu were Princess Otahime, Jinbei, and Lasana, who was called by him. He first said to Jinbei and Princess Otahime, "Jinbei, let's forget about the war, but that's the last time. If you still offend Marine, I will never spare you." At the same time, yours Shichibukai's identity was also stripped. Jinbei has already passed the anger with Princess Otahime and knows why Akainu let him go. At the same time, he also understands that the Fishmen Island now needs to rely on Marine, so naturally he will not violate Akainu's words. As for Shichibukai's identity, he didn't even care. He had been imprisoned by Marine before the battle with the Whitebeard pirates. How could he still retain Shichibukai's power? What's more, he now knows that the situation in the Fishmen Island is very critical and must rely on Akainu's power, so he will never violate Akainu at this time. The old man knows what to do. Then Akainu pointed to Lasana again and said, "Lasana is Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral and my disciple. This time, she will go to the Fishmen Island with you to deal with the threat of Big Mom." After the Top War, Lasana has been promoted to Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral by Akainu because of her outstanding achievements. Princess Otahime looked at Lasana with suspicion. She never thought that Akainu would send such a young and beautiful female Marine. Although the scar on Lasana's face destroyed her beauty, no matter how she looked at it, she doesn't think that this female Marine is a very powerful person. In contrast, she hopes that the original Ghost Spider Vice Admiral can be with her. However, Jinbei said softly to Princess Otahime, "His Royal Highness, this Miss Lasana is very powerful, and she is most suitable as a representative of Marine." Princess Otahime didn't know Lasana, but he knew that Lasana was a Marine supernova more than 10 years ago and a disciple of Akainu. This identity alone is higher than most Marine generals, let alone Lasana is also a capable person of Logia, and she leads Marine to the Fishmen Island, which just shows the importance of Akainu. Although Princess Oheim didn't know why Jinbei said that, she still trusted Jinbei so much that she stopped talking. Akainu had already told Lasana about this before, so of course Lasana took the order. After Princess Otahime and Lasana left, Akainu was also thinking about the follow-up of this matter. With the strength of the woman Charlotte Linlin, I am afraid that even if they Marine shot, they would not let her compromise. To be hands-on. The eradication of pirates is naturally what he thinks, especially the 4 emperors, who are huge threats, but he knows better that facing the pirates of the level of 4 emperors, he must not do it easily. This is New World. The naval headquarters has just moved over, and even if the world government is behind it, it is very unwise to fight with the Big Mom pirates as soon as they come up. It's really a troublesome thing, but it can't be ignored. The Fishmen Island's sincerity has been taken out, and he has already agreed. It is absolutely impossible to ignore it halfway, otherwise it will be a big blow to Marine's reputation. After all, it hasn't happened yet, and Akainu is just preparing, but another order from the Holy Land of the world government made him very uncomfortable. 5 elders actually asked him to replenish Shichibukai's regulations at this time. In the first battle, Shichibukai changed a lot. Jinbei rebelled, Gecko Moria disappeared, Blackbeard rebelled, and now Shichibukai only has 4 people left, Hawkeye, Doflamingo, Hayward and Bartholomew Kuma. Akainu dislikes the Shichibukai system very much. After these people become Shichibukai, they not only do not obey the orders, but also may rebel at any time. Not to mention their actions, they are lawless and deterring the pirate forces. I can't even see the slightest. What use is it for them?